Hi, Twitch Live. Can you hear and see me? Can you hear me and see me? Can you both hear me and see me? Are you there? Hello. Welcome. You both hear me and see me. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let me plug in my computer. Yes. So, hello. I saw we just have 80 people here because we were in screensaver land. That's okay. We're gonna get there. I feel good about it today. I think it's gonna happen for us. All right, so you guys over here, we call this Burger Reich, and that should make sense to you. So if you have been liking this conversation and you don't know a lot about communism or socialism, but you're interested, and maybe you're hearing things where you're like, wait, that's not how I learned about that, and it's piqued your curiosity, we do a big stream over on Twitch where you can actually pull up sources and look through things together. It's a lot more conducive to live streaming over on Twitch, I will tell you. It's really clumsy trying to live stream on TikTok. So if you want to come over to Twitch and do a proper live stream, it's an app built for live streaming. Okay, I had never used Twitch before like December, and in the past 4 months I've been using it. I'm like, this is way fucking better. It's free. You can come join us over there free. I'm literally just hard selling you on Twitch because I like it better as a platform, and we can go through evidence. It's just nicer. So come on over and join us on Twitch. We're twitch.tv/Madeline Pendleton. Same as here, but with no underscore, and it's really nice. And what we do over there, thank you everybody sharing it in the comments. Tanky.org for resources, yes. What we do over there is we talk about current events most of the time. Thursdays are special, but almost every other day we talk about current events, and we go through what's going on in the world with a left-wing perspective. And we talk to you about the historical context you might have missed for what's happening, how things are being reported in a way that's maybe disingenuous. We talk about the implications of what's going on in the world, and you like it. Yes, Twitch is owned by Amazon. Every single social media platform is owned by bad, evil people. It is almost like, as Marx said, capitalism lends itself inherently to monopolization, where everything is just owned by a few companies, right? So that's the kind of stuff we talk about over on Twitch. So you can come join us there. Do we answer questions and stuff on Twitch? No, we go through the news, but we also do a Q&A at the beginning. We talk about things for a little bit, yeah. So we do a combo. So come on over there. I know, there's monopolies in capitalism. Who knew? And we'll talk about things, and you can learn about left-wing politics, and I think that you'll like it, you know? I think this app is really, well, you guys know, since January especially, right, since Donald Trump and the Oracle thing and the switch, you know, which, by the way, wasn't just Donald Trump. Joe Biden's who initiated this whole fucked-up process that ruined our precious app. It's been harder to talk about politics. It's been things that get censored more easily. It's very, very difficult to have candid conversations about anything that challenges power. And gesturing wildly at the world outside your windows, I think it's very, very obvious that we need to be challenging power. So we need to talk about ways to effectively challenge power and what that looks like, what that really means, because it doesn't mean supporting the Democratic Party. It doesn't. And that's one of many things, if you're an American, we talk about. But also something interesting in our chat over on Twitch, sorry, it's blurry, there's a lot of international people. So you can get a more international perspective on politics. You know, we have people in our chat talking to us about what's going on in England all the time. We're talking to people constantly in this global perspective. So if you're an American, what you hear me say might sound crazy to you. Madeline Pendleton's insane. What are these politics? Why doesn't Madeline hate North Korea or Russia? Why does Madeline support Iran? Like, all these things might sound insane to you. But that's because the United States has a very unique political landscape that's extremely far right. My politics are actually very, very common in other countries around the world. This is just left-wing politics like everywhere else on the planet, really. I tell people there's billions of people that have my exact same politics everywhere in the world. So if you want to learn what actual left-wing politics look like in most of the world, come join us. We have these conversations, and you're probably going to enjoy them. And it will show you just how ridiculous it is here in the United States that our sad excuse for left-wing politics is the liberals. And you'll hear from other people in the chat all day long about how the liberals are their right-wing party. And it's not like it's just a different name or a same name for a different thing. No, it's the same. They're just considered very right-wing because they're actually just right-wing. So come on over, join us there. You will like it. I don't know what you guys are talking about with this thing. What's Quetzalbash? What is this? I have to look this up. This is a hole in my knowledge. Is it pop culture related or is it niche history? Either way, I'm not going to tell you anything interesting about that. I'd have to Google it. What is this? What is it? I'm gonna look it up. Oh, it's a tribe of Shia Muslims from Iran. Oh. Flourished in Azerbaijan. Interesting. And Armenia. Okay. Yeah, this is not niche history. Niche current, too. Is there something going on with current events over the weekend? Smaller religious group in Anatolia. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that, so I'm not a good person to ask about that. And you guys will see, I will only talk to you about things I know. Like, I'm not going to pretend to know something I don't know. So well, we'll see that. Contrary to what they tell you on the internet, that I'm just talking my ass about shit. I made a funny meme. Did you guys see the meme on my TikTok story? Real chat? You hear the word vouch block from your chat? So funny. I thought it was so funny. London's best guy saw. A religion. Oh, we're 2:15. Okay, great. So I'm gonna hang up here so we can continue this conversation over on Twitch. Join us. I think you'll like it. If you like watching live streaming, I think it's a better platform to watch live streaming on. And when you get there, it might look a little overwhelming. You just search for a user and just watch a user, and then you'll start to get used to the platform really, really fast. So come join us there. Why do I dress so obnoxiously? Babs, get with the program. I dress cute. People like it. People like it. I've made more of Gen Z a communist dressing like this. So maybe every communist needs to start to dress like me. That's all I'm saying. It worked on somebody. Okay. All right. I'm hanging up. Bye. Hi. Yes. It's called fashion, sweaty. Yes, Larry. Thank you. You live in Ukraine. Is your ass cooked? Probably. Yeah, you're probably pretty fucked. It's not good. Because, like, even if you win the war, you lose, you know? With what's going on over there, with all those people you got running around. It's bad. I'm real sorry. My country did that to you. My tax dollars fucked your country up. As per usual. So, mea culpa, man. Mea culpa. Well, just welcome. Hi. First time chat just transferred from TikTok. Hi. Oh, yes. Me dressing goofy. It's important. Yes. Audio is so much better on TikTok, really. Hold on. I do have the mic. I could try to set the mic up. I have a plan. Hold, please. Okay. I've got the mic. I'm going to close the door. I'm going to set it up perfect to where I don't touch it. It's not going to bump the cable. The audio is going to sound great. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. You're going to be like, wow, this is the best audio I've ever heard on Twitch. Madeline should start setting up other people's Twitch streams audios. That's how good it is. They're a savant. You want to fight? Virgo has audio trauma. You know, we live in Lindsay. Oh, thank you for the gifted sub, Opsis. Yeah, okay. Virgo thinks the audio is usually fine. All right, hold on. Properties. New mic cord? Not yet. I was out of town all weekend. What do we think? Way better. Okay. All right, we're doing it. I think this is set up. I have to close the door, though, so Zay doesn't come in, because she's what messes it up, I think. Poor Zay. Louder. Okay. Hey. Ah! You got a job. Nice. Congrats. Wow, thank you. I should, huh? New side project. I come to your Twitch stream, set up your audio for you, because I am a tech pro. That's right. Yes. Hello everybody. Welcome to the Twitch stream. Yeah, TikToks in Cuba has your eyes balling. Yeah. I cry a lot about Cuba. I did not cry when I was there though, because I was full of revolutionary optimism. So, you know, what all do you need to start streaming? Well, I started streaming from my phone with nothing. And then I upgraded to like a $10 light I got on eBay, just on my MacBook, and this microphone I had from my podcast already, but apparently it's not very good. So I'm saving up. People have been subbing. Subscriptions help. I can get a new microphone, which is nice. So that's what's up with that. And the subscriptions do help. So thank you guys. Yeah, I am actually a landlord audio engineer. That's what I do. So, hello everybody. Welcome. If you are new, we are CEO of Landlord Audio. Yes. Landlord.
going to tattoo that on my neck. So if you're new here today, welcome to our Twitch stream. We call this the Double Down. We double down on our politics in relation to the news. And what we usually do is we take a look at one news article and we go through it all together, talking about, we read the news article, we talk about it in historical context, we discuss it, we bring up any relevant information to better understand the story and what's going on in the world. Now, there's two things we do first. First of all, we do a Q&A. I've started setting a timer for a 10-minute Q&A. Sometimes we go a little over, but that's just for your general questions, so we can answer some general questions. Getting down. Hold on. Okay, here. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing that's important for you all to know is that I cannot talk about what happened in the White House press conference thing, or White House press. I can't talk about the assassination attempt. As you know, I am with party. I respect my party greatly. And as a party, we are not commenting. Nobody is commenting on that. So that is off limits because we love democratic centralism. And that is not something my party is talking about. You are allowed to talk about it. I am not allowed to comment on it at all. So we love party discipline. So, unless some of you guys are in my party. And some of you guys are in my party. I know some of you guys are in my party. So, I don't say which party I'm on the internet because I don't want them to get harassed. I always tell people, like, they're not internet trolls like we are. They're not, like, weird internet slop content consumers like us, right? They're real people. So, they're, like, doctors and nurses and teachers and engineers. And I just can't imagine the internet interacting with them and how frustrating that would be for them. So we keep them safe. So I talk about my Peace and Freedom Party work, which is an electoral realm. I guess because I'm not high up, I'm not a big organizer in Peace and Freedom. I just do like basic volunteer work for elections. And I've been with Peace and Freedom since 2004. Nothing I do is going to reflect poorly on Peace and Freedom Party. Anybody can join Peace and Freedom. You can join Peace and Freedom Party if you're in California, and I hope you do. I hope you do register Peace and Freedom Party. Peace and Freedom Party is the umbrella org for electoralism that runs all the socialists from different socialist parties out in California. So you'll see me sometimes. I work with Peace and Freedom Party. You'll see right now I'm doing a lot of work with PSL is out at a lot of these things because 4 out of the 5 candidates we're running are PSL. So, you know, and I will say in California, you'll see a lot of coalition developing happening right now. So you'll see me probably out at events, sometimes that FRSO puts on. Sometimes you'll see me at events that Veterans for Peace is putting, like you'll see me out at things, and that's because there's a lot of coalition building. So Larry also doesn't name his party. Yes, that's smart. Mm-hmm. Smash Ultra, what's your current party? What do the different... I don't know what the different color names mean, frankly. FRSO? I like FRSO. I love FRSO. I mean, if they're not super active in your area, you could change. Their platform's basically identical to PSL. So I would say the only reason to change would be if PSL's a lot more active in your area than FRSO. I love FRSO, though. Every time I see FRSO people out in public, I always get excited. I'm always like, yes! I love them. Yeah, so. When you mention your party online, you're talking about PSL and PFP. The party you do your local work with is just 9 of us, so it feels like it's not just a party just yet. Yeah, exactly, Virgo. Yeah, same. Kind of, it's just like, we just, you know, yeah. And WP, you know, a bunch of sweethearts, and yes. And again, I used to be in CPUSA. I know a lot of good comrades in CPUSA as well. I know a lot of Marxist-Leninists in CPUSA who are fighting a good fight, trying to make them a Marxist-Leninist party again. Sometimes I get a little too excited by the progress they've made, and I'm like, CPUSA is an official Marxist-Leninist party again now. Yay. And then they do something, I'm like, oh, not yet. But there are good principled Marxist-Leninists in there, and there are also good principled Marxist-Leninists in DSA in certain caucuses. It's not a decision I would make. But, you know. Melmay says, you told your friend in the United States to join PSL because she needs it. She's got liberal tendencies. Yes. And I always say, if you're harboring any liberal tendencies, PSL is really good at getting through to you. They're like the lib whisperers over there, man. They're geniuses at handling that. I'm impressed with that every single day. You got Trotsky's nephew to join PSL. Oh, you're Trotsky's nephew. Yes, Lilith. Oh my God, great. Yay. You organize with Marxist-Leninists. I organize with a Christian Social Democratic org. #SmallTownProblems. That's great, though. That's so good. Anything. You joined a PSL book club reading Socialist Reconstruction this weekend. Awesome. Yeah, and PSL is unique because they actually have written a prescription for what they think basically communism with American characteristics would look like, and it is unique to them. So they've done it, which is very, very interesting to me. I've read it. I like it. How off topic are questions allowed to be? Well, I'm going to set the timer starting now. And then you can ask anything, but not every question gets answered because of the timer and, it's just what I see and how ADHD brain goes. So, timer's on, 10 minutes now. General open Q&A. What do we have? How was my weekend? My weekend was great. I went to Sick New World Fest. For those of you who aren't familiar, it's a new metal music festival out here in the United States. My best friend got us all artist guest passes. I still have my thing on. I need to cut it off for the weekend. So that was really cool. So we got backstage access. We could go everywhere. It's really, really fun. She's like a magician at that stuff. And we got to see Korn and System of a Down and Cold Chamber, which I was really excited to see Cold Chamber. That was so cool. Danny Elfman was awesome. Yeah. I just spit water out on my keyboard. What kind of stuff do you do with a local party? Well, some of it we can't talk about on the internet, right? And it'll be different from org to org. Loco. It was so fucking good. It was crazy. And I was just like, I just want to see the big truck song, man. I just want to see the big truck song. And then I heard it. Big truck right there. Yeah, it was great. It was so cool. How tall is Khalil? A lot taller than me. Khalil's gorgeous. For those of you who don't know, Khalil looks like a supermodel. Like, I don't know if you guys know that. Khalil's done modeling. Khalil is gorgeous. I know that there was some less principled leftists on the internet who once tried to dunk on Khalil's appearance, and I was like, nobody's buying that slop you're selling. He's a gorgeous human being. So yes, Khalil is very like conventional. All your conventional ideas of what attractive people look like, that's what Khalil looks like. It's like very, very tall, very, very fashionable, Yeah. So that's what Khalil looks like. Tall. Okay, so what is... Yeah, reposted by Khalil, Khalil's so fucking smart, too. I love Khalil. So, all right. Where was what do you do in a local org? What can you expect if you join a local org? Well, it depends. Some local orgs will do labor organizing. It really depends on what's happening in your area. If you have a big labor struggle going on, they might reach out to and help support different labor unions in whatever's happening there, strike support, media attention towards certain negotiations, things like that they might do. They might also help with anti-gentrification things where you live. So the Marxist approach to gentrification is a little bit different. We don't think of it as individual people are out causing harm. Like, we don't think you're the devil if you move to an area that's predominantly Latino and you're a white person with a slightly higher income. We view things more systemically, but we do think businesses coming in and doing things like business improvement districts is bad, and we will show up in those areas to try to fight against businesses gentrifying areas. So you might do some of that kind of work. You might do some mutual aid. Marxist-Leninist orgs focus a little bit less on mutual aid than anarchist orgs do, but we still do mutual aid, certainly. So out here in Altadena, when we had the fires, a lot of our Marxist-Leninist orgs showed up and did fire cleanup for people, just really helped do stuff like that. So those kinds of things. You'll probably do a lot of reading. So the purpose of a Marxist-Leninist vanguard party is that you are expected to be educated about politics. So the idea is that if the masses were to have a revolution today, tomorrow would somebody be equipped to form a government and lead? And we see this example happened, in Korea. The People's Committees, the second that Korea was free from Japanese imperial control, they sprung to work into action and they became the government. It is kind of the idea of the vanguard party. So you need to be very, very politically literate and up to speed on things. So there's a lot of that kind of political development that goes on. There's a lot of anti-imperialist activism. You'll probably work, depending on how big your group is, you might work with socialists in other countries to help support each other, to help bring media attention sometimes to imperialist things. But really your main goal, I always say we're in the easy stage in the United States, certainly of Marxist-Leninism and education. We're trying to reach out to people. We're doing education. We're in the education stage. So it is the easiest stage right now. We're just trying to make people aware that the problems they have are with capitalism and that socialism is not the devil. That's like our primary goal. So a lot of protests and things like that. We're not stupid. We understand that in the United States, they have a limited political utility, but we do them to bring awareness, to bring people out into the streets. And sometimes they do actually make some changes. So, but we sometimes will do events just to get media attention on an issue we don't think enough people are paying attention to. So my org was doing coalition work with other orgs here in LA to bring attention to Iran. Like at the beginning of the year, because we were like, Donald Trump's going to try to fucking go to war with Iran. So we were trying to get all eyes on that, like all eyes on Iran, like something's happening in Iran, things like that. Okay. More questions. What else you got? Any tips on how to find leftist community organizations? I'm struggling in North Central Massachusetts. Okay. So I always recommend first just looking to see if FRSO or PSL have something near you, because they're across the whole country. So they might. If they don't, you can look into local orgs. Where to find information on local orgs is a little bit more tricky. You can obviously Google where you are and look up an org, right? That's pretty easy. But also you can go to local bookstores. If you have any bookstores that are a little more left-leaning, you can go see if they have pamphlets there. Any flyers, anything going on. You can go to just generic kind of left-leaning protests and things like that. Even like the No Kings marches. A lot of communists go out to the No Kings marches to find people like you. To find people who are like, you probably don't want to be here. You want something more than this. We want to make sure that you're not... like your revolutionary spirit and enthusiasm is not channeled into something lackluster like the Democratic Party. So a lot of communists try to co-opt No Kings and take it back from the Democratic Party. So there might be people there, even at more lefty, just not like explicitly Marxist events, just more like lefty progressive events or whatever. You might find some things there. You're a leftist but not a communist or a Marxist? Never. Well, stick around. We'll work on that. It's okay. Nobody's perfect. You'll get there. All right. Oh, any other questions we have? We've got 4 minutes left on the timer. Not a Rickroll. You like the video? Okay, wait, hold on to it, Cara, and then I think we're going to do videos at the end. I'm trying to come up with a new format that keeps people engaged for the VODs and for YouTube. We'll fix them. The more truth you learn, the more Marxist-Leninist you become, Larry says. I agree with this completely. Best flavor Gatorade, I don't like Gatorade. That's the devil's drink, and you're all psychotic for drinking it. Something's wrong with you? After the revolution, you guys might want to nationalize Gatorade, not me. I'm banning it. Banning it. Is anything being built in the United States that you are happy and excited for? Yes, right now I'm very, very, very excited about in California what electoralism is doing to bring people to socialism. I know Lenin talked about this, and I know I read Lenin talking about this, and I was like, yeah, okay. This is my first time really volunteering in an intense way with an electoral campaign of Marxists, and it is wild how much more willing people are to talk to you when you have a candidate that you're talking to them about socialism in regards to. So I've been very, very positively inspired. Obviously, we know elections are politically obsolete in the system, but the masses don't. The masses aren't aware of that. They think elections are very significant and maybe the only way they engage politically. So this is why obviously Lenin said we have to show up and we have to meet them there, and that we must use the elections of the bourgeois machine to show them the limitations of this system. So this is my first time really doing a lot of direct volunteer work with an election in a hands-on way, and it has been very, very inspiring me how many people are open to a socialist platform, right? The candidates running out here in California, they're literally just running on a very standard Marxist-Leninist platform. People love it. People love it. Republicans here abolish the insurance companies, and they're like, you know what? Fuck yeah. I hate insurance companies. I mean, it's amazing. So this has been very, very inspiring me, and the work that's going on in the Central Valley has been very inspiring to me too. I get to go up every few months to check in on what Fresno's got going on with their socialist movement, their communist movement, and it's very, very cool how many people, I was talking about this on my TikTok live stream, but how receptive people are to that. Even people who don't like communism, like the communists in Fresno, just because they're so nice and they care and they're helping the community. And it's very cool to watch that happen. Yes, you can imagine it's very frustrating watching the streams on YouTube because we spend 2 hours on random topics and 45 minutes at the end of the actual reading. Yeah, exactly. And people started putting timestamps in them, but I'm like, oh, we should try to be a little more aware of it. I am a Fresno truther. Ha 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 ha. Yes. Are elections useless because of the EC or because of the candidate? So, first time chat, that's a good question. So the Electoral College in the United States is certainly bizarre, right? And the candidates are certainly compromised. However, it's more than that. It's that we believe that the system of capitalism will not allow you to vote it out of power. Capitalism is a very, very harmful system for the majority of people, right? The only people who benefit from capitalism are like 200 rich dudes. I think in the United States, it's like 600 or 800 rich dudes who actually benefit. That's like our actual oligarchy, our ruling class. And you can look at them and name them, and many of them aren't in politics. But they buy politicians here, right? They bribe politicians here. So the politicians are beholden to them and their interests. More than that, our whole country was set up in the United States, where I am, probably where you guys live, to be capitalist in nature. That's the whole structure of everything. So what that means is that if you wanted to start to change things really, really dramatically and radically to benefit not those 800 rich dudes here, but average everyday people, the system is literally created to not allow that to happen. And this becomes a problem, right? This becomes a major conflict. So you are probably never going to be able to vote your way out of capitalism, is what we guess. We would love to be proven wrong, though. If we could, that would be awesome. That would be easy. We would love to give it a try. Why not? But probably we don't think they're going to let us. So that's an important thing to know. But, it's not necessarily, doing away with the Electoral College. Certainly having more direct democracy, would be good in the United States. The two-party system in the United States, certainly doing away with that would be good in the United States. But even if we had more like what other countries have, where other countries don't have an electoral college. Also, other countries have more than two political parties, and yet they are still capitalist, and yet they still deal with the oppression and the exploitation of average everyday people. They still deal with wealth inequality. They still deal with their version of 800 rich guys calling all the shots, even with things like the Electoral College not existing and things like the two-party system not existing. So they have more political options, et cetera, et cetera. So we know, based on what we see happen in other capitalist countries, that that's probably not going to be enough to get us out of this either. Yeah, Mel May, where you live, you have hella parties. There's so many parties. And in the United States, to be fair, we have a lot of parties. The Democrats and the Republicans just manipulate everybody into thinking for some reason you're not allowed to vote for them. You're allowed to vote for them. You can vote for them. There's no reason you can't vote for them. There's nothing formal in the United States about our three parties, or third parties, or more than the top two parties. But look, still, they end up having a lot of power, right? Even though there's nothing structurally about that. That's an issue. Yeah, voting is definitely not harm reduction. That is, I think Democrats have said it manipulates a lot of people, right? You think, well, at least this isn't hurting more people, but it's actually not true. And the effect over my lifetime in particular, I'm 40, right? I have seen the effect of lesser evil voting in my lifetime. And the best example I have of that, and this will be the last thing I say before we move on to the actual info, is this. When I was first getting radicalized, it was the war on terror. It was 9/11. That's what I was getting radicalized in, okay? So, who is this person you guys are talking about in the chat? Just a weirdo? Yeah, I'm unk. Yeah, I'm unk as fuck. Oh, okay, they're not here. Oh, okay, all right. So, take it back, Big Gakko. They're being weird. Okay, that's fine. So, we're seeing system move down, which is a great full circle moment. I also am cooking up a theory that Serge is a Marxist-Leninist. I have a theory about this. I'm developing this theory. I'm working on it. So 9/11 happened, and I had liked nu metal. I grew up on punk, and I was like, yeah, you want to get punk? My dad listened to punk. That's like not cool. So then I got really into nu metal. And for those of you who don't know, also California is the birthplace of nu metal. Nu metal is very Californian. It's painfully Californian, right? And also places like Bakersfield, where Korn is from. The whole Central Valley really gave birth to nu metal. And the reason is that it was the alternative kids' basically version of rap. It was a way to express frustration about being working class, about being poor, ways to express frustration with your parents abusing you, with being called gay all the time and not knowing where to put that, right? So that's why rap rock as a thing had so much crossover. That's why there was so much crossover with rap and hip hop. And a lot of the people making nu metal weren't white people, right? They were a lot of people of color. So I can write a whole dissertation about nu metal in particular, but System of a Down is part of this, right? System of a Down from Glendale, famously Armenian, right? Survivors of the family, not them directly to my knowledge, but their families come from the Armenian genocide. They're very politically activated people. So, they basically, 9/11 happened, and Serge got taken into federal custody from System of a Down. And I was like, what? I want to learn about that. And I was already pretty radicalized because I remember watching 9/11 being like, well, what did we think would happen? Like, we literally do this to other countries all day long around the world. And I remember telling my mom that on the phone when she called me. And she was like, and this is how millennial I am. This is how we do a phone. We don't do this. We do this. So my mom calls me. It's like, turn on the news. I turned it on. I'm like, what did we think was going to happen? This is what we do to other countries every day. Whatever. She hangs up, mad at me, hates me. I'm like, eh. And then Serge gets arrested and taken into federal custody or something like that. I don't know. And I'm like, what? And everyone's like, well, he wrote this thing on the System of a Down website. So I went on the System of a Down website immediately before it got taken down. And I know some metalheads don't think new metal isn't real metal, but it's for all the reasons, right? It's because it's very soft, it's very effeminate, it's very queer coded, right? A lot of songs are about people thinking you're gay if you're not actually gay anyway. It's very lower class. And it's aggressively dominated by people of color, or at least it was in its inception. A lot of people of color, right? Regular metal, very, very white. It's a little more, whatever, more masculine. Okay, so again, I could write a dissertation on new metal and politics of it. So basically, Serge wrote a whole thing about the cause and effect of how this ended up happening and what the United States had to do with 9/11, and that really radicalized me. So, during that time, I became very, very politically involved and very politically activated in anti-war efforts and anti-imperialist efforts. And at that time, Dick Cheney was like the devil to us. This was, as much as Democrats hate Donald Trump today, that's how much we hated Dick Cheney. George W. Bush was technically the president, but Dick Cheney was calling all the shots. He was the warmonger. He was bloodthirsty, which isn't to let George W. Bush off the hook. Obviously, he was a bad, bad man. But Dick Cheney was bloodthirsty with a particular level of psychopathy that was unnerving to witness. So, we were on the streets mobilizing against Dick Cheney every single day. This was the great Satan to us. And then to look at Kamala Harris, strobe light effect, 20 years later, be like, I'm so proud to accept the endorsement of Dick Cheney. I have the Democratic Party be like, yes, we love Dick Cheney. I'm sorry. When I was 14, you guys were saying that Dick Cheney was the greatest devil on the fucking planet. That he was the most evil man who ever lived. That he murdered like 1 million people in West Asia, right? I know. We're almost done. So, seeing that change and shift, that's what happens with lesser evil voting. You lesser eviled yourself into just being so evil that the Democratic Party today is just as right-wing as the people we were in the streets by the millions trying to protest against in my youth. What do you think the Democratic Party is going to be like in 20 years? What do you think? How much far right-wing are you going to let them get before you say that's enough? Right? Okay, so, emote only chat fight. Thank you. You're right. Get us on track. So with that said, we're going to get into our actual content today. Long Q&A, sorry. You guys know I like to yap. You know I can yap. So here's how the Q&A now being done, how we're going to move into our actual content for the stream. We're going to talk about the news. We're going to talk about one article from the news. And the way it's going to work, I'll tell you when it starts. Right now it does not start yet. You are going to submit a link to a news article you want to talk about. So take a second, get them ready. The first 5 that are submitted will be the 5 we vote on. Right? I will throw out anything that I think isn't going to make a good topic. Just get a little editorial control to keep things going. The UK news is spreading propaganda about Labubu's being made with forced weaker labor. Perfect sentence. No notes, Car. So get them ready. And when we say when, the first 5, get it. And that's going to be how it goes. When emote only chat ends. Maybe Virgo announce it. Wait for Virgo to announce it. And then that's how we do it. 1 minute left. Pushing little children with their fully automatics. This is what I'm saying. I think Serge might be a comrade. At first I was like, what if he's kind of compatible left? I don't know. But then I'm like, you know what? I think the Tiananmen Square song, I think he's like, hey, what you think you heard about Tiananmen Square is not what was really going on. I think he might be a comrade. And also, his drummer is MAGA. And he didn't kick him out of the band. He was like, we all have different politics, but we're stronger together and we must unite against the same common enemy. And I was like, that's a Marxist talking point. That's not a lib talking point. That's Marxism, baby. Also, I just want to say, this guy is so cunt. He is like, hold on. What's this guy's fucking name? Where is he? Whoever this guy is, I don't know his name right now. This guy is so fucking cunt live. He is sassy. Was fashion the reason why it could go either way. But yeah, I love this guy. When I say feeling cunty, picture him. All right. So, links incoming. Are we ready? His little mannerisms. Okay, we got the first one. Taub. Coming through with the first link. All right. Then we've got Jarate Lover. Oh, we got a North Korea story. I love it. We love to see it. NPR, number 3. Speaking of the libs, what's the lib news reporting? CBS. All right. I now have 5. Hold, please. Cars is 5th. Oh, it's a good one. It's the Labubu. Okay. So the ones I have so far, let's make sure there's no duplicates here in terms of topics. We have Chernobyl at 40, nuclear power. We have North Korea opening a museum commemorating troops killed fighting for Russia. We have Iran's flurry of diplomacy continuing in Russia. Okay, Iran-Russia crossover event. We have Arizona and ICE. And then we have a video, investigation into China's Labubu's linked to forced labor. Okay, this one's not enough for us to do a whole thing about, but Car, save it for the end, please. I think we're going to do a video period at the end. I think that's going to be how we end everything. We're going to watch like 2 videos or something like that. So I'm going to do the Daily Mail one from Obsis instead, but I definitely want to watch this video. Or actually, you know what we should do? While we vote. I'm going to keep that open to watch while we vote. It's only 35 seconds long. That's what we're going to do. Obsis number 5. Yes. White female Mamdani mayor who has never owned a car takes away lane of road from motorists. Outstanding. Outstanding. Okay. We'd love to see it. We're there. We've got it. Katie Wilson. That was a joke. It was a joke. He's sorry. You don't want to do it? Do you want to withdraw? Do you want to withdraw? Withdraw. Fair. White female Mamdani. I hate her. How dare she, that bitch? What the fuck is up with this NPR link? Where can I fucking open those? Museum. There we go. Oh, we saw this one. We've got this one up twice. Okay. Newsweek. Oh, the Mamdani Act. We still got this one. We talked about this one last week. So unless there's any updates. Yeah, we saw this one. Yeah. Those of us who are already here, though, they're stuck with us. They can't do anything. They cannot do anything. Okay, we need one more. One more, guys. Who wants to be in first? Mom Donna. You don't say. First time chat. Okay, The Intercept. Great. MK Ultra Korean War prison experiments. This is very fascinating to me as well. This is a new one too. We like it. All right. I'm gonna put in my email for The Intercept. That's fine. Okay. So, are we ready for the poll? The news you want to read? I can't talk about it. Lock me up. I'm in mouth jail. I'm glad. This is why it's nice to join a party. Because I'd be out here on the internet saying some fuck ass shit and I'd have the FBI showing up at my door. Right? That's why it's good for a party to be like, now's not the time, comrades. And I'm like, thank you. I need to be in free speech jail. Because I'd be saying some fuck ass shit. Who knows? Oh, yay. Okay, you're only here for socialism. Welcome. Yay. All right. Virgo's ready for the poll. So the poll options today are Chernobyl updates. North Korea and Russia. Iran and Russia. Arizona versus ICE. And MK Ultra. Fresno Trutherism is getting censored. I am millennial. It's true. You know what? We love it. I love it. I love being millennial. We gave you everything. We gave you ukuleles. We gave you, who's the chick from New Girl? Zooey Deschanel. Everybody loved her. We gave you peaches and the entire genre of electroclash. All right, everybody, the poll is up. Vote or gulag. You know the rules. Voting is mandatory. Do your civic duty to the chat. Go vote now. Go vote now, or I'm going to sing you Zooey Deschanel songs from her special project, She and Him, with a ukulele. Damn it. New metal is millennial. That's true. We gave you new metal. How can you hate us? We gave you new metal. No, my voice is already fucked up. See? It was all fucked up already. Zoe cheated on Death Cat for Cutie. So true. So true. All right. Everybody's voting. Get out there. Do the damn thing. We're going to watch the Labubu Uyghur Pro Slop video. I'm thrilled that Car gave us. Car has blessed us. Oh, it's not making sound.
Banned cotton from a
I gotta start it over. It
Some
wasn't making sound.
Labubus have been found to contain banned cotton from a Chinese region known for forced labour. Xinjiang is where Uyghurs are concentrated, and the Chinese government's been accused of forced labour, forced sterilisation, and the torture of the mostly Muslim minority group. But despite the US government banning cotton from there, an investigation by the Campaign for Uyghurs found that samples of Labubu dolls contained it. The New York Times confirmed these results in 16 out of 20 dolls that they bought, mainly in the t-shirts. Popmart has said it will conduct an investigation into its supply chain and is working on an alternative material.
Okay, that was amazing. That was amazing because for those of you who don't know, my day job is I'm a clothing designer. So the Xinjiang cotton thing hit us like a fucking freight train. Out of nowhere, all of a sudden, cotton was the devil. Anybody making cotton clothing was evil because all the cotton came from Xinjiang, and then the Uyghurs were being forced to like hand pick it themselves or something. This was the idea. So this is the first CIA Uyghur like mistreatment slop they got trying to push out into the masses. It did not hit. It did not last. And the reason it did not last is because a bunch of farmers in Xinjiang just were like, why the fuck would we be picking cotton with our hands? That doesn't even make sense when we have these. And just showed all of these giant cotton combing machines in the fields. They're like, why the fuck? Why would we have people do it? That doesn't even work well. This thing works way better. And then it went away. So it's amazing that Metro is bringing back the Xinjiang cotton conspiracy theory slop about Labubus. I just love to see it. I just love to see it. It's amazing. Yeah. Okay, North Korea and Russia won. All right, guys. All right. Good topic. We love it. We love it. So many votes. We love to see it happen. Yeah, I want to go to Xinjiang. I don't have enough money yet for my trip saved up, so if ever there was a time to subscribe, send me to China. Let's go. That's all I'm saying. All right, I'm trying to go to China. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, it's a little rough. Okay. We are going to take a look at North Korea and Russia. This is obviously going to be a story about Ukraine as well. And you guys know I love to talk about Ukraine. Yeah, send me and Lisa to China. You know what we need, chat? We need all of us to go to China. So we got to find somebody else's Twitch stream to send us to China. We got to find like one of those Republicans. It's like, go to a communist country then. And we got to get them to support sending all of us to China. I think that's what's going to have to happen. We got to do that. What if we all pool our money? We all go to China. I'm just saying. I think that could happen. So, all right. Today's topic that we are discussing is North Korea opens museum commemorating troops killed fighting for Russia. Russia and North Korea deepen ties with plans for military cooperation and symbolic memorial museum in Pyongyang. Now, we're going to read the story. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of info in here. My head is spinning with so much context for this. That's very, very interesting. But let's get into it first. So North Korea, also this is AFP, AP, and Reuters. What's AFP? Is that Al Jazeera? Okay, I think that's it. Just Al Jazeera, AP, and Reuters all together. Yeah, we need to get Mr. Beast to send a bunch of communists. Yes, I sent 200 communists to a gulag for 50 weeks. We need Mr. Beast to do that for us. So North Korea has opened a memorial museum in Pyongyang for its soldiers killed while fighting alongside Russian forces in the war in Ukraine, in the clearest sign yet of how central the conflict has become to the growing alliance. The inaugural ceremony at the Memorial Museum of Combat Feats at the Overseas Military Operations was held on Sunday. It also marked the first anniversary of what the two countries describe as the end of an operation to liberate Russia's cursed border from Ukrainian incursion, the state-run Korean Central News Agency KCNA reported on Monday. KCNA said North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un attended the event along with senior Russian officials, including State Duma Chairman Vyacheslav Volodin, and Defense Minister Andrei Belousov. South Korea's intelligence agency has estimated that North Korea deployed about 15,000 soldiers to fight for Russia in the Kursk region, and about 2,000 of them were killed. Moscow and Pyongyang have not disclosed any figures. Oh, AFP is France's top news agency. Thank you for that contact, guys. I was like, Al Jazeera, Free Press, Al Jazeera, Fun Press. No, okay, so AFP. So we're getting the French. So the French are all, my people are all up in this. We got AP, we got Reuters, and we got my people, the French. At least censor it. A reminder for new chatters, we do censor France and French. Please include an asterisk instead of any vowels for sensitive members of our chat. To France and the French. Yes. Very important. Very important note for everybody. So, we're getting, peak in the Imperial Core kind of content going on. South Korea's intel. Oh, that was you. Oh, Virgo didn't censor it. Well, you have no excuse, Virgo. you should really know better. This is like me with Spain. We don't have excuses. We've been here from the jump. South Korea's intelligence agency has estimated North Korea deployed 15,000 soldiers and 2,000 were killed. During the ceremony, Kim sprinkled earth over the remains of one soldier and laid flowers for others whose bodies had been placed in a mortuary, according to KCNA. Kim and the Russian officials then signed a guest book at the newly opened museum. In his speech, Kim said that the fallen North Korean troops would remain a symbol of the Korean people's heroism and would support a victorious march by the Korean and Russian people. He accused the United States and its allies of pursuing a hegemonic plot and military adventurism on the Russia-Ukraine front. He's right. Praising Russian and North Korean forces for thwarting those efforts. Meeting Belousov, separately, Kim pledged full support for Russia's policy of defending its sovereignty and security interests, KCNA said. Russia's TASS news agency quoted Belousov as saying Moscow is ready to sign a military cooperation plan with Pyongyang covering 2027 to 2031. In a letter read by Volodin, Russian President Vladimir Putin said the new museum would be a clear symbol of the friendship and solidarity between the two countries and pledged to further strengthen their comprehensive strategic partnership. Since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Kim has tilted his foreign policy decisively towards Moscow, supplying troops and conventional weapons in exchange, analysts say, for economic support and possibly sensitive technologies. Officials in South Korea, the U.S., and allied countries fear Russia could transfer advanced know-how to Pyongyang that would boost its nuclear and missile programs. Right away, which just makes me think, the people who call us campus, it's like, I've said this before, the world is divided into camps whether you want to acknowledge it or not, babe. They're telling you right here. The camps are there. So you don't get anything from being an enlightened centrist, fence riding this shit, saying I'm not going to choose a side. The idea somehow of understanding the world is divided in camps makes you somehow less progressive or revolutionary. Like, you need to understand the material conditions of the world so you can engage in them. Gulag camps, first time chat, Alyssa 11. The funny thing is, I don't know if you're a Marxist-Leninist or a troll, because that's something we would say too. Campists are winning. Campists are winning. Alyssa wants to run the gulags. Re-educate them all. You're right, Alyssa. You're so right, Bebs. Get Alyssa in charge. That's what I'm saying. Get her in there. I trust her. So military experts say North Korean troops initially suffered heavy losses in Kursk due to their lack of combat experience and unfamiliarity with the terrain, making them vulnerable to Ukrainian drone and artillery fire. That's true. They don't have a lot of combat experience. Why? Because North Korea is not out trying to destroy the world, right? They don't have a lot of military experience. They haven't had to. Listen for camp counselor. Ukrainian military intelligence officials have assessed that North Korea's leader gained a crucial battlefield experience and became central to Russia's efforts to overwhelm Ukrainian forces by deploying large numbers of soldiers in the region. I'm so beautiful. Wow. Okay, so this is Defense Minister Andrei Belousov meeting North Korean leader, obviously Kim Jong-un. And balloons fly overhead as soldiers stand in position next to memorial stones during the opening ceremony. This is very, 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 very touching and beautiful. And again, this is like, if you are an American leftist, first of all, you probably don't understand what's leftist and not a Marxist-Leninist. You probably don't understand what's going on in Ukraine. And we'll talk about that. For anybody new to the chat who doesn't fully understand what's going on, we'll talk about that. And it's hard because these people are fighting imperialism. They're fighting American imperialism. And so many Western leftists, right, want to go to the internet and be like, what about Eastern imperialism? First of all, imperialism doesn't just mean country does something you don't like. That's not what it means. And second of all, this is not what's going on. Like, there's that quote that's like, if you're not careful, the news will have you rooting for the bad guys and condemning the victims or something like that. That's exactly what's happening here. So, yeah. But really, these people gave their lives fighting against American imperialism. They gave their lives for a noble cause, and the world will not understand that, which is very, very, very sad. So this is Kim Belousov and Russia State Duma Chairman Volodin raising a toast during a banquet hosted for the Russian delegation visiting North Korea to attend the opening ceremony. And so here we have more of this. Kim has reaffirmed North Korea's support for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The language obviously very, very heavy-handed here. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, ignoring a lot of context. Promising to help Moscow achieve victory in its sacred war, in air quotes. Kim paid tribute to the soldiers' unrivaled bravery, mass heroism, indomitable fighting spirit, and noble sacrifice. And it was a noble sacrifice. That was a very noble sacrifice. And Kim expressed a belief that the Russian army people would surely win a victory in the just and sacred war. He took part in a ceremony to bury the victims of war, recalling their last heroic moments and covering the remains of a soldier with earth. They inaugurated the Memorial Museum of Combat Feats at the Overseas Military Operations, honoring the soldiers. Okay, so that's the whole thing. All right, so right away, we've got some thoughts on this, right? All right, so obviously the West's framing of what's going on in Ukraine and Russia is very heavy-handed and biased in one direction. And we'll do a brief recap. I talk about this a lot, so, we don't need to get too into it. I'm just saying, there's a reason why all the Ukrainian nationalists on Twitter want me dead. Okay? True to this, not new to this. And I do think there is a temperature shift starting to happen on Ukraine. I think more and more people are starting to realize, like, hey, I think something weird might be happening in Ukraine. I think maybe what the United States government has told us is what's going on in Ukraine isn't quite right. I've seen more and more liberals, even more like left comms, start to say this in my comment sections on things like, hey, I just heard some things about Zelensky I don't like. Hey, did you know that Zelensky's actually backed by an Israeli billionaire? Hey, what's up with Ukraine making it illegal to have left-wing politics? They're starting to realize these little things are getting through that they're like, wait, that doesn't fit the narrative, though, that I was fed by the West, that Ukraine is this bastion of freedom and liberty, right? And that big bad evil Russia's invading them. So, that's something that I think is starting to shift. But we'll talk about it. We'll give a little recap of what's actually going on there for anybody who doesn't know, so you can get a little framing on this. And then we'll talk about what this means for North Korea, what this means for the DPRK, why the DPRK is entering this military alliance with Russia, and what that looks like. And we'll probably talk a little bit more about campism and camps and why people say this and why it's a silly, silly critique to have when you understand the world as it is. And the potential for the military cooperation we'll probably go over as well. So for those of you who've heard me say this a lot before, I'm so sorry to have to tell you again, but this is a reminder that you can find resources to also look into this in more detail at tanky.org. Thank you, chat, for purchasing. If you scroll down to resource docs on tanky.org, you will see sources to research the Ukrainian-Russian conflict is here. And I do truly think this is a conflict in the truest sense of the term. I think that is the most appropriate term to use to describe it. Obviously, it is a war now, but this idea that it was an unprovoked invasion is pure propaganda, and we'll talk about why. Yeah, win obsis. Yes, thank you. So you see more Russians disappointed in their government's actions in the war. So look, here's what I'm going to say. Alyssa, camp counselor, re-education, Gulag camp leader. War is bad. Shocking to nobody. Shocking to nobody, war is bad, right? War is harmful. War is bad. During any war crimes exist on both sides. War is tricky and messy and horrible. Russians are well within their right to critique their government. The second largest political party in Russia is a Marxist-Leninist party. That means that the second largest group of people running around Russia would love to have a Marxist-Leninist revolution again and go back to being a worker-led state. That's obviously a political and economic system that will look very, very different from the version of Russia that exists today, right? We know that. So, that's fine. People in Russia are allowed to have complicated feelings about their government. However, that doesn't mean anything to us. What individual people in Russia think about their government, how happy they are with it, how happy they're not with it, that literally has no bearing on us at all, right? There are, where I live in the United States, there are Americans who think that, I always use this example, that there were like trans-speciest cat girls using litter boxes in American schools. What average everyday people think really have no consequence to us one way or another. So what does that mean? What do we actually want to look at? I would understand. I would understand it more, the idea that the people of Russia are divided on how they feel about this war. It's a lot of resources going into it. They've lost a lot of lives going into it. A large contingency of them we know don't fully agree with the political and economic system that Russia currently is because they are Marxist-Leninists, right? We know that Putin is actually inspired by a lot of that contingency to do more anti-imperialist work. We also know some historical context that's interesting is that Putin originally tried to lead Russia as more of a European-minded, Western-aligned political entity. I just realized this was off center. There you go. We know that. And he was shut out of doing that by the West, which we'll talk about in a second in more detail as well. So, it doesn't matter how excited or not excited people in Russia are that their country's at war, because they didn't want to be at war. Every step possible was taken to avoid Russia going to war with Ukraine. And those options were completely shut down by the West. Not even necessarily by Ukraine, which is a wildest part, by the West. Oh, hello, Dave Legendrade. Hi. Welcome, everybody. Why did they recently start spelling Zelensky with two I's? I don't know. Maybe they're trying to brand him as being more ethnic or something. I have no idea. But yeah, it did usually have two I's, but yeah. The average Russian people also have to bear the brunt of U.S. and Western sanctions as a result of the war. Yes. So, you guys remember my washing machine repairman? Many of you do. Many of you remember him. In my early days of Twitch streaming, my washing machine broke. And I had a washing machine repairman come. And I noticed he's actually, I was like, oh, where are you from? You're speaking Russian. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm from Ukraine. And I was like, oh, that's cool. When did you move here? What's up with your story? He was talking to me about a story. And I swear this is related. So, welcome, everybody. So, he's like, well, I'm older than I look. I grew up in the USSR. I grew up in Ukraine when it was part of the USSR. And I was like, the USSR. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's interesting. What was it like? Yeah, you guys had really cheap houses, right? I remember that. I heard about that. You had really cheap houses, right? And he goes, no, offended. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm sorry. And I'm so used to talking to Americans, I assume he's going to hit me with some anti-communist shit. And he's like, we didn't pay anything for our houses. That would be immoral. Our houses were free. No, we would never, no. They were free. You paid a very little amount for your utilities. That's what was cheap. That was really subsidized. But our house is free. And I was like, okay, all right, okay, my bad. I'm so sorry. Yeah, okay. So he's talking. He's like, yeah, I grew up in the USSR. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, so you lived in Ukraine during the switch from the USSR to capitalism. And he was like, yeah, I did. It was hard. It was really really hard. And I'm like, yes, I've heard it's really really hard. And so he goes on and he's like, well, it wasn't so bad though, things changed, and my brother and I started a business in Ukraine. We started a business, so we were running a business in Ukraine. That's pretty cool. We can do that under communism. And I'm like, right, okay. So did you guys make a lot of money? And he's like, well, no, not really, but we were surviving. It was okay. And then he was like, houses got really expensive. And I'm like, yeah, that happens under capitalism, right? So we're talking about it. He's like, yeah, it's fine. And he was basically like, the difference between communism and capitalism, whatever. They each have their perks, their downfalls. It is what it is. So then he's like, yeah, it was fine in Ukraine until, everything started happening. And he's talking obviously about the coup in 2013, 2014. The coup happens. Ukraine becomes very politically unstable overnight. So he's like, so my brother and my family, we leave Ukraine because it becomes very, very politically unstable. So I'm like, oh, where'd you move? Is that when you moved to the United States? And he goes, no, we just moved to Moscow. So they actually moved to Russia when 2014, when Crimea was getting annexed and all this stuff was happening. They moved. Where did they move? They moved to Russia. They moved to Moscow. So he's in Moscow and he's like, yeah, so my brother and I started a new business and we're doing imports and exports and, everything's fine. Okay, cool. That's fine. Great. Russia. Love living in Russia. Easy. And then he's like, the sanctions set in though. The sanctions start setting in. All of a sudden, the United States starts sanctioning Russia because of Russia responding to what was happening in our country in Ukraine. And he's like, okay, all right, well, I'm an import-export business, so I guess I'm not importing things, but we can still export things, that's fine. And then he's like, well, then what happens? Putin sanctions everybody back. It's like, fuck you, fine, I'm sanctioning you too. Okay, well, now there goes my whole export business. So now I have no business. So we're talking about this, and he's like, yeah, so, I got to move. I got to start over, and now, I'm a washing machine repairman in the United States. And I'm like, right. Okay, so going through all of that, what do you think about that, man? Like, how's that make you feel? And he's like, well, I don't really care. I don't really care what the system is as long as it works. And he's like, and I'll tell you, for a while, business was good. I was eating steak dinners, $100 steak dinners once a week if I wanted. That was crazy. That was so good. But then it all goes away. And it's like a crash happens, and everything's bad, and now I'm broke, and now I'm fixing washing machines. And I'm like, okay, well, did you like have a preference, And he's like, no, that's fine. There's pluses and minuses in both, whatever. And so I tell people the story a lot, and I tell them this is the average person. The average person is not an ideologue. They just want something that works. But the anarchy of the free market under capitalism, is what ultimately, right, led him to kind of lose everything twice and then become a washing machine repairman. That's how it goes. That's what capitalism gives you. It gives you that instability. So I thought that was like a really, really interesting take. But the thing that is fascinating for a lot of people about this is they would not expect somebody who left Ukraine to go move to Russia voluntarily when all this conflict happened. And no, I'm talking to you guys. Sorry. We're talking about what we read. So, what does this have to do with the Ukrainian-Russian conflict? Well, it just shows you that most average Ukrainians were caught up in this conflict that really had nothing to do with them, that they weren't interested in, right? They caused a lot of political instability where they are and where they were from, and they just wanted to get to somewhere stable. And they weren't ideologically super opposed to Russia, most people. They went to Russia for safety. And this is really relevant to our understanding of Ukraine and Russia during the conflict and what really happened. By any means necessary says, in capitalism, the worst thing that can happen to a capitalist is becoming a wage laborer. In socialism, the worst thing that can happen is the adoption of capitalism. Exactly. So, when I talk passionately, it feels like I'm talking about Burger King. So what does this story, teach us, right, about Ukraine and Russia? Well, I think that's the important framing to have in your mind. That contrary to how Western media presents it, most average Ukrainian people didn't hate Russia. They don't hate Russia. They didn't have an ideological reason to be opposed to Russia. And that's important to understand in the context of us knowing what happened to get us to this point where we are at a war. Nadia has, I think this is probably a relevant link that you've sent. Russia's communist leader warns of a 1917 style revolution may be on the way. The actual communist leader? Or are they calling Putin a communist leader? I'm interested. So let's then take a second to talk about the real nature of the situation between Ukraine and Russia for anybody who doesn't know. Because if you're Marxist-Leninist, you know, we've done the analysis. We know, we all know what's going on. MEB knows. So we're just going to do a little recap to get everybody on board with the story. So when we read this news story and you talk to average liberals, they're like, why, if North Korea is so great, why are they sending troops to Russia then? All right. And you're like, well, you're not going to like what I tell you about Russia, my friend. You're not going to like it. And of course, we know, they're like, Russia's not even communist. They haven't been communist since 1981. We know that. It's not why we defend Russia in this context, or, not necessarily defend. It is what it is. You could look at the invasion and be like, war bad, whatever. I don't know what I would have done if I was in Putin's position. That was different. Obviously, war is bad and it harms people and kills people and it's not ideal. So, whatever. But why we don't support Ukraine. So, the actual situation of what happened there is that Ukraine had a massive issue with Nazis during World War II, and all of this, you can find links to all this information here, tanky.org, on my resource list, so you can learn more and follow along. So, Ukraine had a massive issue with Nazis during World War II. There was a nationalist there named Bandera who wanted to build an ethnically pure Ukraine, and he had joined a nationalist party called the OUN, and was actually forced to leave, split off from the OUN and start his own version of the OUN called OUNB, B for Bandera, and a bunch of guys came with him. And they were the people that explicitly wanted to build an ethno-state going on in Ukraine. So when World War II broke out and Hitler started doing the Holocaust, Bandera wrote to Hitler and was like, hey, I love what you're doing. You should come do that in Ukraine. I've got some guys here and we'll help you. And Hitler was like that, and they showed up, and the OUNB basically acted as the domestic branch of Hitler's army while they were carrying out the Holocaust in Ukraine. And the OUNB is said to be personally responsible, just their little group, for the murder of approximately 100,000 ethnic minorities. And Ukraine actually has the highest number of casualties during the Holocaust than any other country that experienced it. And some historians think that this is in large part due to Stepan Bandera and his influence in Ukraine. So, you know, Stepan Bandera ended up getting into like a weird little tiff with Hitler. He was like, thanks so much for clearing out all the ethnic bads, Hitler. I can't wait to be in charge of this new Ukraine all on my own. And Hitler was like, why the fuck would you be in charge of it? Like, we're in charge of it now. What? So they ended up arresting Bandera and putting him in prison, but they gave him like a buddy deal prison situation. Like they sent him to a concentration camp, but he stayed basically in a lot of areas that were reserved for the officers of the SS. Like he ate meals with the officers in like the officer cantina. He was given like this buddy soft imprisonment. And then he was released, and then ultimately the USSR hunted him down and murdered him, as they should have, for his crimes, right? So that's what happened, and Bandera died. Now, there were still a lot of Nazis hanging around Ukraine, and in the aftermath of World War II, the United States ended up going around to a lot of these countries that had experienced the Holocaust that had Nazi collaborators and imported many of them to the USA and had them set up these basically ethnic councils within the US borders that kind of sanitized their Nazi past. So basically the United States was like, you guys are valuable. The Nazi thing's not so great, but we can work with this. Brought them to the USA, kind of sanitized their image, and set them up, on these councils. So if you were a Ukrainian Nazi, for example, you might have been brought to the United States by the US government and put into this council called the UCCA, which is a group of Ukrainians in the United States operating. Now, these councils had minimal government input for a few decades. Everyone was like, we're going to do something with them. These are useful. This is a useful connect to have in some way, but we don't quite know. Until Ronald Reagan came around. And when Ronald Reagan was running for president, he was like, I can work with this. And he approached all of these little councils, basically, of Nazis and Nazi descendants, right, from these other countries and said, hey, if you help me win this election, if you tell everybody in your diaspora that I'm the guy, I'll give you guys more political power. And they said, okay. And that included the UCCA, the Ukrainian one here in the United States. And so Reagan did give them more political power after being elected. Now, this book came out in the 1980s that was Russ Bellant, and it was a book called, this is linked in the document as well if you guys are looking at tanky.org doc, Old Nazis, the New Right, and the Republican Party. This book came out in the 80s and was so shocking. Like, hey, Reagan's been working with Nazis from Ukraine to help get him elected. Like, there's all these Ukrainian Nazis in the Reagan administration and weird high-up jobs. This book was so shocking. A number of people had to quit their jobs from the Reagan administration, including 2 Ukrainians in the administration. So this kind of you got a lot of Ukrainian Banderites in Canada. Yeah, I've seen some of the clapping for the Nazis going on in Canada too. So this was kind of this scandal, right? But it didn't spell the end of the UCCA. Like the UCCA still exists. So meanwhile, the United States was looking at Ukraine, and especially in the early 2000s was like, we need to find a way to get Ukraine less connected to Russia. Now, this surprises a lot of people. They don't know this, but Ukraine really liked Russia. When we think about it, there's a few things to be aware of. We've talked about this before, but I'll pull it up. The USSR referendum in 1991. We've shown this image before. It's a good image. We'll show it again. So sorry, I just found it hosted on Reddit. But this was the referendum in 1991 on the preservation of the USSR and who wanted to keep the USSR. And the average for the USSR was 76% wanted to keep it. Now, again, sometimes liberals are like, well, it was biased. No, it was actually biased the opposite direction. The people in charge of the USSR wanted to dismantle it to do Western-style capitalism for their own benefit. So they did this referendum hoping the rest of the USSR would agree. And they did not. They did not agree. They were not into it. And 76% was like, no, fuck you, we're keeping the USSR. Now, the number was higher in Ukraine. The Ukraine number, here it is, up here was 83.5%, right? Who were like, no, we want to keep it. Ukraine disproportionately liked the USSR. And in fact, they liked it so much that when the corrupt leaders of the USSR by that point decided to dismantle it against the people's wishes anyway, it was Ukrainians who tried to assassinate them in order to keep the USSR. And when it became apparent that the USSR was going to be destroyed, they jumped ship and they were like, okay, we need our own government, whatever. So this is something that a lot of people don't know. A lot of Westerners, a lot of people with access to Western media, even a lot of Ukrainians who are under maybe the age of 35 aren't aware of this, that Ukraine disproportionately liked the USSR. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, the USSR liberated Ukraine from the Holocaust. Remember, they had some of the highest casualty rates during the Holocaust, right? The assassination attempts, hold on. It's in my notes for all my sources are in my notes for my podcast on this. I did a 4-part podcast episode on the Ukraine and Russia conflict, war now. And it's the biggest episode I've ever done. It's 8 hours of content. So if you go look at that, you can look at all my sources and you'll find that info in there. I'll pull it up just so you know. My podcast is Pick Me Up, I'm Scared. So really I'm just recapping the podcast for anybody new. We're doing like an abbreviated version of it. But this is the history podcast. And David and I are going to be recording part 3 of Yugoslavia tomorrow for anybody who's been asking me about that. So it's sorry, it just opened it in Spotify. Nazis, Cookies, and Ronald Reagan part 4, part 3, part 2, part 1. Each of these is around 2 hours long. So when you click on any of the podcast episodes, you see all the sources for it in here. So you'll see the info about the assassination attempts. I mean, it's a lot of sources. Yeah. So you can look through those. All right. So part of the reason why Ukraine in particular loved the USSR, number one, the USSR liberated them from the Nazis. They built statues in Ukraine honoring brave USSR Red Army soldiers that died, gave their life to liberate Ukraine from Nazis. They also had, the Holodomor, they had this naturally recurring famine that had happened in Ukraine for decades before the USSR even existed. The first time it happened under the USSR's watch, the USSR found a way to stop it from ever happening again. Like, they eradicated this recurring famine that had been happening. And that's really the truth of the Holodomor, right? There were some unique weather patterns. There were some unique political considerations with the kulaks, who are the capitalist farm-owning class in Ukraine, burning their own crops and killing their own livestock rather than collectivizing. And the USSR was new. They didn't manage this as well as they could once they got more experience, certainly. But that is the truth of the Holodomor, and the people in Ukraine knew that, right? They knew. They were like, oh yeah, we don't have these famines anymore now after that one horrible one happened. And also, you saved us from Nazis. So that is part of the reason why they had this really high approval rating. So even with after this happened in the transition to capitalism, Ukraine still had a close alliance with the USSR, and there's a lot of reasons. A lot of people Russian. There was this strong Russian cultural tie that happened. And one of the things that I show people a lot that surprises them, right, are these, the polls that happen about the communist nostalgia and how people feel after the fact, right? So, glitchy. I'm sorry. It's my internet. It's Spectrum. Spectrum hates communism. Spectrum's anti-communist, confirmed. So of the polls, the ones that surprise people the most, the ones I like the most, are the ones that talk about everything by age, right? So young people tend not to miss the USSR. Older people do. So, when we look at approval of change to democracy and capitalism, the number of people who approved of the change to a multi-party system in Ukraine, originally, when it first happened, 72%. By 2011, after they'd had a chance to really see since 1991, 20 years of it, what had gone on, only 35% approved of it. They weren't happy with capitalism. People in Ukraine really did not like capitalism. Originally, 52% approved of the shift to a market economy after the destruction of the USSR. By 20 years later, only 34% did. They were straight up not having a good time, right? So when we get into the details here, we see people going about this influences thing, blah, blah, blah. This is a really good, I really like this, the Pew style of asking about these things. But there's a few different polls they did. So this one is from 2011. There's also one from 2009 that is really, really good. And I have just it screenshotted in my notes here, so I'll pull that up so we don't have to go look for it very, very far. Older people more likely than younger people to say the dissolution of the Soviet Union was a bad thing. Can I zoom in? If you zoom. Yeah, no, it doesn't do it. Okay. But in Ukraine, we could see people over the age of 35, 40% at that time said that the breakup of the USSR was a bad thing for their country. But we can see when we got into people age 65 and up, it paints a very, very different story, right? So when we look at the percent of people who approved of the change to a multi-party system in Ukraine, when we look at people 65 and up, only 20% approved of that. And the age 65 is very, very important at this because they would have had 20 years experience living under capitalism and 20 years experience living under communism, both as adults. And that's really the core. They weren't children. They were adults. They were dealing with things like housing and healthcare and jobs, etc. And only 20% of people in Ukraine who were old enough to have experienced 20 years of both capitalism and communism approved of the change to a multi-party system. So when you look at these numbers compared to everybody else going on, Ukraine had the worst time. They missed the USSR the hardest. And this is from 2009, this poll. The market economy, same thing. Only 20% of people 65 and up approved of the shift to a market economy, to capitalism, to free market capitalism from the centrally planned economies that had accompanied the USSR. And again, they're the lowest. They're the lowest approval rating of that switch. So when we get into breakup of the Soviet Union from 2013, was it more harmful than good? Here in this poll, 56% of people in Ukraine by 2013 in general were saying that the breakup of the Soviet Union did more harm than it did good. Only 23% said that it did good. 56% said it did harm, right? So these kinds of things were going on in Ukraine. People were not happy about capitalism, especially people who were old enough to have been adults under communism and really know what was going on. And this is going to relate to how they feel about Russia, how much nostalgia they have for the USSR. So in the early 2000s, people were already starting to see like, oh shit, this capitalism thing's a bum rap. And they were still very, very heavily aligned with Russia. So they were doing a lot of trade deals with Russia, and it's important to note that Ukraine has some key industries. They're the breadbasket of Europe, right? They have a lot of agricultural industry. They also have a lot of natural gas. And in the year 2000, the leader of Ukraine was pretty corrupt, and he ended up getting involved in an assassination plot against a journalist. I think he actually had a journalist assassinated there. So this was a big deal. The journalist had been an author for an online newspaper, and those were new at the time in the early 2000s, and they seemed somehow less biased and more reliable, more like earnest and real journalism to the Ukrainian people than a traditional newspaper would be. And the fact that he assassinated this journalist gave them even more credibility. So by the time the 2004 elections came around, in Ukraine, 2003, 2004, the United States was like, we have an opportunity to really change things in Ukraine and pull all of their natural gas industry and their agricultural industry, that whole sector, both of those sectors, away from Russia. So they were like, we're going to invest money heavily in this 2004 election. And we did so. The United States did so. And we had this whole color revolution attempt, the Orange Revolution that happened there, right? And that was going on in Ukraine. So we then kind of eased off our influence, I guess, assuming like we did it, that's enough, they're all gonna love us now. Some interesting things happened. I don't know. Like a lot of Americans got involved in Ukrainian business, but the average Ukrainian person wasn't aware that the US was pulling all these strings, and they still had complicated political feelings. So the United States by around 2010 realized that actually we need to do a lot more if we are going to really pull all of this Ukrainian industry and business towards the West and away from Russia. Ukraine was still doing these business deals that the West viewed as too advantageous to Russia. They weren't really feeling that good about it, right? So the United States in 2010 started aggressively dumping millions of dollars in propaganda and election campaigns in Ukraine to try to get someone in charge there who would really be our guy. And this was massive. So you can see in 2010, the National Endowment for Democracy picked up a lot of steam with how much they were contributing to these campaigns. We were running our own U.S. basically candidates. One candidate ran whose wife worked for literally the U.S. State Department. I mean, it was getting very, very intense over there with what we were trying to do. Also, a number of billionaires in the United States started forming these NGOs with the goal of also delivering business from Russia in Ukraine to the West. Pierre Omidyar, who was the guy who invented eBay, he had one umbrella org that was massive, that was focused just on Ukraine for business and industry development. We were very out in the open. We were trying to make Ukraine our guy. We wanted the access to their natural resources in a major way. And as long as they were doing all these deals with Russia, they wouldn't be dealing them with us. And that would be a problem. So the propaganda we started pumping into Ukraine was extensively anti-Russian. We wanted them to hate Russia. The more we could get them to hate Russia and want to be a part of the West, the more we could get them to want to maybe join the EU. Maybe they want to join NATO. This would all be advantageous for giving us access to their natural resources. So by the time 2013 came around, the country had really been divided. A lot of this propaganda was very effective, especially on younger people in Ukraine. That's why you'll talk to a lot of people in Ukraine who are younger who are like, no, that's not what happened. And I'm confident on the YouTube video that I post for this, I'm going to get a lot of people saying it's wrong. People always tell me, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And I always tell them, okay, what's one thing I said they was wrong? And they never can say anything, right? They can never say anything. And they like usually will say something like, well, you're framing. And I'm like, the framing is the facts laid out. And if this is the first time you've actually heard the story laid out from start to finish, including U.S. intervention and destabilizing Ukraine, even if you're Ukrainian, it probably is shocking. It probably is unsettling. And there's a lot of Ukrainians who are not aware of the extent to which my country, my tax dollars as an American, was spent aggressively destabilizing Ukraine. And that can be hard for them to hear. They're not aware of the whole story, right? And you'll hear people be like, well, why are you as an American talking about Russia and Ukraine? You don't know what you're talking about. And they seem not to understand. I am actually not even in the third country involved. I'm in number 3 of the 4 major players in this, because the EU is not innocent in this either. The EU is to blame as well. So, you know, this is really not just a Ukraine-Russia thing. This is heavily a United States thing as well, and an EU thing. So, yeah, by the time 2013 comes around, the leader of Ukraine is kind of dealing with this very, very divided country. Some people who are more located in the east, geographically closer to Russia, they are also aligned more with Russia. They like their old relationship with Russia. They're not mad about their relationship with Russia. They think that it's good for them to continue to do business with Russia. Some people, usually in the western part of Ukraine, view themselves as being more European. They have been more influenced by the propaganda, right? They want to join the EU. They want to join NATO. And there's this major, I believe it was a natural gas deal that was going on. And basically, these 2 camps of people within Ukraine were pressuring the president to sign this deal with their team. So if you were pro-West, you wanted him to sign this deal with the West, because that would open things up to make them more part of the West. But if you were not, if you were in the East, you wanted them to sign this deal with Russia. And he didn't know what to do, and he went back and forth, and he ultimately decided that he was going to sign the deal with Russia because it would be safer to not upset your next door neighbor, right? So he signs this deal with Russia. Turns out this was a bad move. Massive protests break out that turn basically into a revolution, a coup. One of this kookball candidate, honestly, out in Ukraine, Tymoshenko, she was a politician, and she was like, our country got couped in 2013, 2014. I think any rational person will look at that and call it a coup. Many people in Ukraine will not call it a coup, and they'll get very upset when you say that. It's a coup. I'm sorry. You call it what it is. It's a coup. So this group of protesters came together to basically protest against the government in Ukraine doing this deal with Russia, and they wanted to get their president out, they wanted to overthrow him, you know, blah, 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 blah. Now, the contingency of people they were involved in this, it was a lot of businessmen, a lot of people who thought they would profit, quite literally, from having more advantageous business relationships with the West. It was some anarchists showed up because they were like, yeah, fuck the government, we're anarchists. They showed up. Just an average everyday people who liked the idea of being more European, rock and roll and blue jeans. They're like, oh, we want what the West has. Let's get in there. And some Nazis, some literal fucking Nazis. Now, these Nazis in particular came from the same school of the Nazis that the United States had been fostering relationships with in the USA through the UCCA, and also with ties to the Nazis still on the ground in Ukraine. They had come from this, and they worshipped Bandera, Stepan Bandera. They carried around pictures of Bandera. They still called themselves Banderites. They were still members of the OUMB, B for Bandera, right? So this was real. And these Nazis were a small amount of the protesters, but they were heavily armed, and they were heavily organized. And they ended up dominating, even in small numbers, the protest movement. And they were so aggressive and successful, in fact, that by the end of 2013, American politicians were flying out to Ukraine to meet with them and talk with them. So there's some pictures you can see of American politicians at that time. John McCain was a big one. On stage next to these Nazis who were helping to start this revolution, going to dinner with these Nazis, because the United States was basically like, here we go, this is John McCain, old as shit. Just really old guy, meeting with all these Nazis. He's on stage, he's giving speeches next to them, because the United States was like, we want this protest to happen. We want this revolution to happen. And if the Nazis are helping make it happen, fuck it, they're our guys. So it was John McCain and Victoria Nuland who went out to Ukraine a lot to talk to these Nazis and give speeches next to them on stage, etc., etc. At one point, they even gave out like cookies and sandwiches to these protesters, a lot of whom were Nazis in the square. Now, racist ageist landlord, because I'm being mean to John. Look how fucking old this guy is, though. Like, Jesus Christ, man, retire. Like, what are you doing out here? Doing geopolitics, Grandpa? What is up? So, yeah, the United States was all in on this. And we even said, well, the Nazis can't actually be in charge of the country if they pull this coup off. That would look bad. This other guy is a little more clean, but part of the protest movement can be in charge, but he should be talking to the Nazis regularly. So ultimately, they won the coup. And this is exactly what happened. Exactly who the United States said should be in charge ended up being in charge. And, all these things happened. And the Nazis for a while were operating basically like paramilitary groups. Now, it's important to note that the Nazis had not actually cared about being more aligned with Europe or the United States. I mean, remember, they wanted to build the Ukraine for the Ukrainians. So they're like, whatever. They viewed it as a temporary alliance. And they even said, like, when this is over, we're coming for Kiev next. We're coming for the capital next. Because we actually don't want to be like Europeans or Americans. We want to be Ukrainian. We're Ukrainian nationalists. Nazis. They're Nazis. So they set to work terrorizing basically ethnically Russian areas of eastern Ukraine. They were running through the streets, kidnapping people. They were abducting people. They were terrorizing people. They sent this one woman, her son's head in a box, all for the crime of being either Russian or a communist, because they associated communists with Russia because of the USSR. The anarchists who had been part of the protest movement had even remarked, like, they kept calling us communists and kicking us out of things. And we were like, we're not communists, right? The anarchists hate communists too. We're not communists. And they're like, but it didn't matter. Like, they kicked us out nonetheless. So they were looking for anybody with left-wing politics. And they were doing things like making it illegal to have left-wing politics. People who were leaders of socialist parties in Ukraine were imprisoned, were locked up. They took to the internet to try to raise a lot of attention about this. They were giving interviews like, hey, something as bad is happening. The fascists have won in our country, and they are silencing us. They are making it illegal to be a leftist. A devastating fire happened in a trade union building that murdered, I believe it was like 42, if I remember correctly, leftists. And these guys were running, these Nazis in Ukraine were running through the streets hunting for Russians and communists. And you can see some found footage. In this resource document, I have a link to some found kind of footage that's presented almost like a documentary, but with no commentary. It's the Donbas conflict, the civil war. You can look at that. But in these regions, you'll see literal grandmothers being like, I didn't think they would come for us. And they're talking about these gangs of Nazis that were emboldened after winning the coup, running through their neighborhoods, terrorizing. I mean, these women are like, we're like grandmothers. Like, why would they attack us? Like, what's happening? You'll see communities preparing because they get wind that a group of weird Nazis are going to come run through their streets and pillage them, looking for Russians and communists. It was very, very bleak. It was very, very bad, and it was alarmingly fast. Now, at this time, European news sources were even talking about this. Like, if you search Ukraine Nazis before 2015, we'll say, you'll see this is an article from The Guardian. Azov fighters, that's the Nazi battalion, are Ukraine's greatest weapon and might be greatest threat, right? This is from 2014. This is, here's another one from 2014. Ukraine underplays the role of the far right in conflict. These are Nazi symbols, right? I don't know if we can show those or not. So I actually have to be careful about what I can show you, because on Twitch, you're not allowed to show Nazi symbols. And all of these guys are running around with Nazi symbols, right? Look at BBC videos from 2012 about Nazis in Ukraine. Yeah, I don't know if I can show you guys these videos because of terms of service. Ukraine's Svoboda Party links to neo-Nazism. This is in 2014 as well. 7 decades of Nazi collaboration from the nation, America's dirty little Ukraine secret. Like, this is stuff that was being talked about by the West at this time. So people will tell you this is Russian propaganda. It's not Russian propaganda. This is stuff we were learning as Americans. Europeans were learning this as well. So as this was happening, Crimea, which was an area that was predominantly ethnically Russian, was getting terrorized by these Nazis. Meanwhile, Europe was kind of looking at Ukraine being like, hey, if you guys want to be a part of Europe, if you want to be in the EU, if you want to be in NATO, you got to clean up the Nazi shit. So Ukraine was like, well, maybe we take all these Nazis and we just formally adopt them into our actual military and disperse them so they're not their own armed battalions, because that looks really bad. Kind of filter them throughout. I mean, it was this whole mess. Crimea asks Russia to be let in. Crimea's like, Russia, can we come in, please? Like, let us in. They are running through our streets trying to murder us. We need protection. Nobody can protect us, but you can. And Russia, and Crimeans, it's important to note, they had not been interested in joining Russia before Nazis in Ukraine started trying to ethnically cleanse them from the region, right? They had never cared about joining Russia. Russia looked at Crimea and was like, we already lease a port here. We have military equipment there. You guys are right. A lot of you are ethnically Russian. You fit in here. Okay, fine. We'll do it. So they had a referendum to let Crimea in. And this was actually very, very successful. I think it was like over 90% of people voted to be let into Russia. So that is what occurred there. Fork's yelling at something. Let me see if I can find it. Crimea referendum 2014 results. Okay, yeah. So this is even from the BBC for reference. 95.5% of voters in Crimea supported joining Russia. And we'll watch this video.
Welcome to Russia. Even before the result, people are celebrating because they know exactly what it'll be. A genuine, overwhelming yes to joining the Russian Federation. During the day, the few Russian troops in the streets weren't coercing the locals. They were besieging the remaining Ukrainian soldiers inside their barracks. Many local people regard them as friends. The West maintains the referendum is illegal since Russia signed an international agreement to guarantee Ukraine's borders. But a great many Russian-speaking people here believe they're being liberated from a country they never wanted to belong to. This is an historic moment, Oksana says. Crimea is going home. This is our land, and we're deciding its destiny. The flags on the voting booths may look like Russian colours, but in fact they're Crimea's colours too. There were only two choices on the ballot paper. One simple, do you want to be part of Russia? And one complicated, do you want to go back to the 1992 relationship between Crimea and Ukraine? You couldn't just say you wanted things to stay as they were. And because the boxes were transparent, it was easy to see how people had voted. I could only spot two anti-papers. Everything is okay and calm and friendly, says the woman in charge. But not everyone's so happy. In the rain and cold this morning, we went to the town of Bakhchisarai.
Okay, so then they're going to interview some people who are like, we're part of the 4.5% who aren't happy, though. Whatever the fuck. Okay. Bye, Virgo. Yeah. So, people wanted to join Crimea because they were getting terrorized by Nazis in their streets, right? This cannot be stressed enough. They were being chased by Nazis. Let me see if I can find this for you guys, too. Let's see. Okay, this is a good one. Crimean Nazi billboard. Nobody look at this. Nobody look at this picture. Highlights propaganda problem. Propaganda problem. They were being terrorized by Nazis. And this is NBC News in the United States, how they were reporting it. They're putting up signs saying that their country's been taken over by Nazis. They must be propagandized. Rich coming from the NBC, from the United States, where we actually consciously had been propagandizing these people into hating Russia forever, right? But even they're saying that in Crimea, the Crimeans, the Ukrainians in Crimea are like, hey, our country's been taken over by Nazis. Hello. I mean, it was really, really bad. Does anybody have a link to any of the Ukrainian socialists who are talking about this? I found this before, but I have a lot of resources on here. And I feel like there's a lot of them that were giving interviews at this time. And I really want to link to some of them so you can see really fast what these people are saying, or any of the names. Larry probably does. I don't know if Larry started his stream or not already, but hold on, let me look really fast. The Socialist Party of Ukraine was banned. 11 Ukrainian parties were suspended. This is even from the anarchist library. Even the anarchists are like, what's happening? This is really crazy. So yeah, 11 and basically what they said, do you remember how they were running through the streets looking for communists? And, WWP had them, thank you. They were looking for communists and Russians. Well, they just decided that any communist or socialist was secretly like a Russian agent. So they made it illegal to have left-wing politics, right? Let me see if I can find this. There was this one guy in particular who did a fair amount of interviews at this time. Let me see. I'm looking. Yes, let me see. Okay, I think it's Vitaly Dudin, maybe? Is that who he is? What is it? No. I'm still looking for him. I gotta find it. Interview with a Ukrainian socialist. I don't include this in my thing, but I really should. Do you guys hear fork? Can you hear fork? I think this is the one. Okay, this is one. Here we go. So this is the one on a World Socialist website, Maxim Goldarb. This is the one. The head of the Union of Left Forces for a New Socialism Party. And he talks about how his party was persecuted. I'm actually going to add this to our... Hold on. Influence of the West, information control. This is going to be interview with a... All right. We've added that in there. So that's now in the resource document as well. Oops, sorry. For anybody who wants to see. But he talks about this, and he's getting interviewed, and they're saying, your party is banned in Ukraine, has been persecuted by the government. Can you describe for our international readers the persecution the party has and is facing? And he says, along with 12 other opposition parties, the Union of Left Forces Party was banned in Ukraine, first by a decision of the Security and Defense Council and a presidential decree in spring of 2022. And this is when the war kind of broke out in 2022, obviously, right? So they're talking about all the persecution they faced and how they were just basically outlawed because they associated being a socialist with being Russian. And they were like, everything Russia is bad. But really what they did is they just made it illegal to be a leftist, right? And that's what's going on. So as this is happening also, Crimea is trying to leave. They're getting harassed, whatever. Ukraine starts building statues honoring Stepan Bandera. And I'm going to show you that. Now, remember, Bandera had been the Nazi. OUMB, B for Bandera. And the Ukrainian government started tearing down statues after they won the coup that had been honoring Red Army soldiers who died liberating Ukraine from the Holocaust, like war heroes from the Holocaust, and instead started replacing them with Bandera monuments. So this is where the Bandera monument started to pop up. This is as far as 2017. And this is how many. There were 17 here. There were 11 here. There were 10 here. This is a Nazi. And these statues are built by the Ukrainian government. So Ukrainian government is building 40 statues now honoring a literal Nazi, right? And this is the support for Bandera in Ukraine versus Lenin. They had some Lenin monuments. Remember, they had been part of the USSR. Lenin was a leader. That would be like their George Washington, right? They wanted to basically build all these Bandera statues instead. Now, so blue is Bandera and red is Lenin. Now, look at this. In the West, you can really see the division. They want more statues to that Nazi. And on the East, where they're closer to Russia, they're like, no, keep the Lenin statues. No support, like zero support, zero blue, no Bandera, right? So you can really, like, you can trace it. Like, here is the line. If you can see my mouse moving, dividing it. It's just like, actually, it's more these people up here that are really close to Europe. So it's this region that's interested. And this is why you might have something like Crimea, not even on the map, because they're like, it's not even, Crimea is in Russia now. All of a sudden, they're like, yeah, our country got taken over by Nazis. That's why I couldn't show you the billboard, right? Because it had a swastika on it. But they were like, our country got taken over by Nazis. What is Ukraine's reason for worshiping Bandera? So if you talk to a Ukrainian nationalist today, they will straight up tell you Bandera was not a Nazi. They will straight up tell you this man who helped Hitler carry out the Holocaust and ethnically cleanse Ukraine. They will tell you he's not a Nazi. And so if you're ever talking to a Ukrainian kookball and you're like, why is this person being fucking weird as shit? That's the shortcut. Just say, hey, quick question. Was Bandera a Nazi? And watch them. And they'll say no. And that's how you know you're talking to a fucking Nazi. Literally, they will forgive and apologize and explain away, literally, the Banderites doing ethnic cleansing with the SS, side by side with the SS in Ukraine. It's appalling. It's with the literal Nazis writing to Hitler. Hitler, come on in. We love it. So it's very, very, very dark and twisted. So this is what's happening. So Crimea is like, help, let us out. We need protection. These Nazis are trying to kill us. And people are publishing billboards like, hey, raising the alarm. Our country was taken over by Nazis. Socialists are like, my country was taken over by Nazis. And the West is like, okay, so there might be some Nazis in Ukraine. It's kind of a problem. I don't know. And then as time goes on, you'll see the West stops talking about it. The West changes their narrative on this completely. They just conveniently forget that a couple years prior, they too were publishing stories about how Ukraine was full of Nazis. They just kind of stopped. And so this was what's happening. Now, the next thing that happens in this whole thing, while Ukraine's out trying to kill Russians and communists, building statues honoring Nazis all over the place, is the Donbas region, an area in eastern Ukraine with two kind of provinces in it. It was like, hey, knock, knock, Russia. We saw what you did for Crimea. How about us too? And Russia at this point is like, no. And there's a couple reasons. The first reason is that the United States has been getting involved in the polling in the Donbas. The United States polls, and conveniently only, like 40% of the people in the Donbas region even want to be a part of Russia. That's not 95%. Now, when Russia polls, it's 90%. So, okay, even splitting the difference, 60% of the Donbas region, that's most. Even if you split the difference, probably most want to be part of Russia, but we don't know. The polls get complicated, and Russia's not trying to start a fight with the United States. Now, it's also worth noting, Russia had tried to negotiate with the United States to be a part of the West, the new capitalist world as well, after the fall of the USSR. Putin asked George W. Bush, and also Clinton, if Russia could join NATO, if Russia could be a part of this new Western world, because NATO had originally been a military alliance against the USSR. Well, the USSR doesn't exist anymore. So can Russia, now capitalist, hey, knock, knock, can we be part of your military alliance? And they said no, right? They were like, you can apply. And Russia's like, I mean, do we really have to apply? We're like one of the largest countries on the planet. You either want it or you don't. And they said no. And that's when Putin had started to get really suspicious of NATO and was like, I think NATO's going to come for us. Now, at the same time, as the years go on, all of a sudden, more countries along the Russian border start popping up in NATO alliance. Now, originally, right, NATO had told Russia, we'll never go an inch east of Germany. Well, now all of a sudden, all these countries east of Germany are ended up in alliance with NATO, and that means they got NATO missiles in their country's borders pointed at Moscow, right? So Russia's starting to get freaked out by this. And now Ukraine, overtaken by Nazis, ethnic Russians getting cleansed from the region, begging, knock, knock, hi, can we come into Russia, please? This is bad. And they're talking to the West about becoming a NATO member. Well, parts of Ukraine are only 500 kilometers from Moscow. They start putting NATO missiles in Ukraine pointed at Moscow. That's like a declaration of war, basically. That would be like Iran and Mexico, or coming into Mexico and parking a warhead in Tijuana pointed at LA, right? Come on. At a certain point, it's like, shame on me for not treating this like the declaration of war that it clearly is, right? So at this time, Russia's reaching out to the United States increasingly like, hey, what's going on with NATO and Ukraine? This is kind of freaking us out. And the United States is literally like, fuck you. Like, Biden is literally like, we don't talk about this. Like, Biden, I think, says Russia doesn't get to tell them what their red line is. I'm going to look this up, this quote. Yeah, so this is before the war. So there's this period basically from 2014 up until 2022 when the war breaks out where Russia and Ukraine have these tense dance going on. And this is around the same time. This is 2021 when Biden tells Russia that Ukraine, they don't get to decide if Ukraine's a red line or not. We're going to do whatever the fuck we want, right? We're going to do whatever the fuck we want. Kalti Moose says... yeah, we get mad about the Cuban Missile Crisis, but it's okay when NATO does it to Russia. Exactly. So Russia's like, okay, all right, I'm noticing what's happening. So the Donbas region, meanwhile, is like, hi, can we come in? And Russia is like, no, for two reasons. Number one, the polling thing. Number two, though, look, we assume Ukraine's getting ready to go to war with us and join NATO and do this whole weird thing. We don't fucking know what's going on. It's going to be helpful to us to have friends in Ukraine. If you, Crimea came and joined us. If you, Donbas region, come and join us too, we don't have friends left in Ukraine. Now our next door neighbor is a country that fucking hates us and is teaming up with the West and NATO, which basically NATO is an anti-Russia alliance, right? To come to war with us. That's what they're going to do. I'm just letting Fort go off. I'm just letting her, yes, queen, go for it. You yell at that squirrel. Maybe there's a cat on the porch. That would be fun for her, whatever. So, this is what's going on. So, things are getting tense between Russia and Ukraine, right? And Russia keeps, to their credit, they keep trying to negotiate, like, a lot. And Ukraine's just like, no. But more than that, the United States is like, no. The United States is like, you can't do that. So what Russia tells the Donbas region is this. Look, you're clearly being oppressed by Ukraine. They were. And they say, if you want to have a separatist movement, we will back it. We will support your independence movement. You will be a buffer state between us and Ukraine. We will support it. We will give you troops. We will give you military assistance. We will do it. So what happens is the Donbas region declares their independence. And I'll show you that. So this happens on May 12th, 2014. Ukraine separatists declare independence. Leaders of Eastern Donetsk and Luhansk regions that's the Donbas, declare independence after claiming victory in a vote. So they have a vote and they're like, yeah, we're independent. So the leaders say that 89% of people, these are Ukrainians in Donbas, say 89% of people who cast ballots on Sunday in the Donetsk region and 96% in the Luhansk region voted to have their own sovereignty, to become their own country. I know, Fork's really mad. I'm going to go check on her. Hold on. My best friend lives in the front house and I live in the back house. She had some people stay with her and they're going to the airport right now. So they're all moving their stuff out and Forks were real mad. So this is what's going on over here. And, they said, this is Ukrainians in the Donbas region say voters have, quote, chosen the path that has enabled the formation of an independent state, the Luhansk People's Republic. And the self-declared people's governor, Valery Bolotov, says, whatever. So this is what's going on. And Donetsk asked to join the Neighbors Federation and said, we, the people of the Donetsk People's Republic, based on the results of the May 11, 2014 referendum, declare that henceforth the Donetsk People's Republic will be deemed a sovereign state. The people of Donetsk have always been a part of the Russian world, regardless of ethnic affiliation. For us, the history of Russia is our history. So think about when you hear the West be like, well, Putin's out here saying that Ukraine is always a part of Russia. Ukrainians are saying that. Ukrainians in this region of Ukraine are like, yes, we are that. Yes, we have a shared history with Russia, right? So nobody talks about that in the West very, very obviously. So they want to have this independence movement. Now, to think about this separatist movement, and I want to really give you some context for this, okay? Because I think this is important to understand. Think about Taiwan and the West. Think about how many people in Taiwan you would imagine want to be separate from China based on the way the West talks about it, right? If you were to guess, those of you who follow me a lot, you know this. If you were to guess what % of people in Taiwan want to immediately become independent from China, a lot of you probably already think Taiwan is independent from China if you're not a Marxist-Leninist. They're not. They're a part of China. They've been a part of China since 1600. So we're talking about a separatist movement. What % of people in Taiwan do you think want to become immediately independent from China, right? And I'm going to pull it up, right? Everybody knows. Smash Ultra. Uh-huh. looking it up? 30%. Yeah, that's pretty good. Let me show you this. Yeah, if you listen to the West, 99% wants out. So this is from the Election Study Center from the National Cheng Chai University in Taiwan. They have been keeping track of this data since 1994. The blue here, the most responded thing, 33.5% of people in Taiwan, they want to maintain the status quo indefinitely. They don't want to change anything. The percent of people who want to have independence as soon as possible, that's this little green circle down here. That's this, 4.4%. Oh, it's a black circle. Sorry, not green. 4.4%. 4.4% of Taiwan wants to immediately become independent from China. So think about that in the context of how that is framed in the West versus, by the U.S.'s own approximations, at least 40% of people in the Donbas region wanting to become independent from Ukraine. By their own polling, 89 to 96% wanting to become independent from Ukraine. Yes, tits out for tankies. I will link this to you. Do you want the Taiwan link? Great name. Okay. Okay, there it is. So think of how the West is framing this. Did anybody in the West mention that the Donbas region had an independence movement, that they wanted to secede, that 89 to 96% of people who voted to become their own country? No, they never mention that. They never talk about that. So when Russia shows up and is like, yeah, we're going to help you with your independence movement, we're going to help you secede, right? That is what starts what we think of as the armed conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And what does Ukraine say? Ukraine says, no, you can't secede, Donbas, you're us. So they start fighting with Russia. Well, they start claiming, well, now Russia's in our land. But Russia isn't in their land. Russia's like, we're in the Donbas region, which we recognize as its own independent country. That's not you. They don't want to be you. We're in their land, and they invited us there. They asked us to come to help fight you so they could be independent because you had a bunch of Nazis running through their street trying to murder them all, right? Nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about that. So this is what started the conflict in 2014. This is just 6 months or so after the coup happens, by the way. That's a lot happened in that 6 months that made these people suddenly be like, fuck this, we are out of here, right? And made them want to join Russia. So this is what starts the armed conflict. Russia versus Ukraine, Russia helping the Donbas region become independent, Crimea becoming a part of Russia. And this would create this conflict that would go on from 2014 until 2022. Now, 2022 is finally when Joe Biden tells Russia basically to fuck off, that NATO's going to do whatever it wants to do. That's when the red line comment comes out. And finally, Putin is like, you know what? Fuck this. Writing's on the wall. We see what's going on. We're declaring war. This is not unprovoked. This is not out of nowhere. Right? So, and this is after a lot of armed conflict had already been happening. So this is the context when we get into this story all the way back, right? Of North Korea sending troops to Russia to help them and how this is framed, right? So Russia's Kursk's border on a map. Oh my God, no, this is not good. This is not good. I need a picture. I need a picture. This is a good one. It's got good old Sky News. Tabloid style bullshit. So this is what we're looking at here. Okay. So I'm guessing this is the Donbas region. You guys know I'm really bad at geography. This feels like the Donbas region to me though. And then down below it is Crimea. So Russian forces have been battling Ukrainian troops for 3 days now after they smashed through the Russian border into the Kursk region. So Ukrainian troops, and this is Sky News, they're conservative, they're right-wing, they entered Russia. So nobody talks about that, right? It's always Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and I'm not saying Russia didn't invade them, they declared war on them. They formally declared war. They were like, we are going to war with you now after, 2014 to 2022, 8 years of bullshit back and forth with these people, right? And then and then what happens in the context of the course of fighting is that Ukraine starts penetrating Russian territory up here and going into Kursk. Now, when we get to this, what North Korea says they're doing, they're saying they joined the operation and why is liberate, in quotes, to liberate Russia's Kursk border from the Ukrainian incursion. Yes, they did. And when they say we sent our troops there to defend Russia's sovereignty, to defend their territory, to defend their border, they did. They literally did, because this is what Ukraine did in the course of the war. Now, look, during a war, bad things happen. Is it horrible that Ukraine took this position and invaded Russia's sovereignty and its borders? Yeah, it's bad. Is it bad that Russia had to declare war on Ukraine? Yeah, it's bad. Is it bad that Ukraine was taken over by a bunch of neo-Nazis backed by American dollars? Yeah, it's bad. Is it bad that things were so awful for ethnic Russians in Crimea and in the Donbas region that they had to ask to join Russia or join a separatist movement just to feel safe and put up billboards warning people that their country was taken over by Nazis? Yeah, it's bad. All this shit is bad. War is bad. Did Russia commit war crimes against Ukraine? Probably. Did Ukraine commit war crimes against Russia? Probably, because that's the shit that happens during war. Now, the interesting thing that's going to occur here is that when you talk to Ukrainian nationalists, they want to focus on individual acts of war and aggression that Russia has done against Ukraine that they think are particularly bad. There are some particularly bad things. There are also reports that Ukrainians have done particularly bad things to Russians way before the war ever started. This information goes around on both sides, right? You're going to hear it from both sides of the aisle. I assume most of it's probably true. That's my personal assumption, because I know war is bad and fucked up shit happens during war. Now, another thing you're going to hear is that people who are Ukrainian nationalists very often are going to be like, well, there's Nazis in Russia too. And they're right. There are some Nazis in Russia too. But the extent to which the Nazis penetrated the government of Ukraine, to the extent that it was terrifying and terrorizing residents of Ukraine, is different. That's a different level, right? There's Nazis in the United States. It feels very different when those Nazis start getting elected to high up positions in your government. Now, also people in Ukraine will be like, there aren't any open members of the Azov battalion, of these neo-Nazi groups, of Right Sector, of Svoboda, all these associated groups high up in the Ukrainian government now. That is true. They were high up in the military. They are still high up in the military. They are an armed apparatus that is disproportionately more powerful there. You could see Zelensky getting into conflicts kind of with these Nazis as well. The Nazis in Russia aren't making policy. The Nazis in Ukraine, even if they're not explicitly making policy, they are driving the country. Zelensky has these meetings with these Nazis that end up in these explosions because Zelensky's like, I tell you what to do. And the Nazis are like, no, you don't, babe. We're winning your war. And they're not wrong, right? They're not wrong. They do have the power. The Nazis have the power in Ukraine because they are winning the war. Now, the popular support for the Nazis at its highest point in the electoral arena was 2%. 2%. The Nazi Party ran an election, 2% of people voted for them. It's actually pretty significant for people to just be out and about Nazis. 1 in 50 people in your country is just like, fuck yeah, I'm a Nazi. That's pretty massive. Think of a room with 50 people. If you walk into it in the United States, do you expect one guy to be like, Sig Heil, yeah, like I'm actually a Nazi? No, you might get the crypto Nazis. You might get the crypto, like, I don't know, crypto fash. But no, these are the people that are out and about. Like, yes, I am voting for an explicitly Nazi party. That's pretty significant. During the course of the war with Russia, these numbers get higher, right? There's a particular issue that happens in Mariupol where the Nazis in the military defend Mariupol, they lose, but they're fighting against Russia, and this becomes like this huge motivating story for people in Ukraine. It gets so intense that Ukrainian TV presenters then are like, you know what, fuck it, maybe I am a Nazi. Start going on TV and shit, quoting Eichmann. Like, the Nazi sentiment in Ukraine gets really, really out of control at this time. Now, it also might... Fork, stop eating the cat's food. Fork, come here, leave it. She's so bad. She's up there on a table right now eating cat food. Hold on. She thinks I can't hear her. She jumps on a table to do it. She's not graceful. She's a very clumsy dog. Like, What do you think's gonna happen? Like, I'm not gonna know. Oh, okay, you found it. All right. Tiniest boop. Sharing this. Yeah, and their beloved Amnesty International, loved by the West, who usually cites the CIA, even they have to admit, right, that Ukraine's fighting tactics are reckless, are harming people. I mean, there's all these reports that are going on. And again, I can give you, there's a lot of info on this resource doc at tanky.org. I do recommend you check it out. There's a lot of info in here. But yeah, basically, the thing to note about all of this is just the framing. If you didn't know all this, if you weren't paying close attention, right, you would think North Korea and Russia are these big evil people going into poor little innocent Ukraine, and just fucking with them for no reason, trying to seize the land. The reality is that parts of Ukraine asked to be let into Russia, and they said no. If they wanted to just do a land grab, why wouldn't they just let the Donbas region in, right? Why wouldn't they do that? If they hated the West so much, why would they ask to join NATO? Why would they try to negotiate with the United States about the countries that were surrounding them with NATO missiles? They even told the United States, what if you added in a different section of NATO just for countries that were on our border where they get the benefit of the defense alliance, but they agree not to hold NATO missiles in there, so we're not threatened, because obviously you're doing this for us. NATO is an anti-Russian giant armed militarized force. Why? Oh no, we can't feed Fork more. She's had treats this morning. She's had a whole thing. It's absolutely wild how this is presented. And you understand why North Korea and Russia are united. You understand why, if they want to call us campus, the world is divided into camps. And whether you want it to be true or not, the camp is Israel, the United States, and Ukraine. There's a reason Zelensky said they want to be the next big Ukraine, or the next big Israel and Ukraine, right? He says this. Zelensky wants Ukraine to be a big Israel. Here's a roadmap. Now, when he said that, he wasn't explicitly saying he wanted to ethnically cleanse people, right? But the implication is there, given the infiltration of Nazis. And he talks about how he wants it to be a highly secure, militarized state, right? Security, the whole population armed, everybody being a militia, self-defense. He wants this. And, like, Israel and Ukraine are military partners. Ukraine sends Ukraine sends military equipment to Israel and vice versa, right? Let me look this up for you guys. This is an article from a month ago. Ukraine deploys units to 5 Middle Eastern countries to intercept drones. This is on behalf of Israel and the United States. This is the camp. The camp is Ukraine, Israel, USA, now Argentina, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Taiwan. We're working on that one real hard. South Korea. This is the camp. And this is the camp that wants to destroy the world. This is the camp that is openly supporting fascism. Right? Ukraine's arms sold to Israel have been found in the hands of the RSF. I mean, Israel and Ukraine are supplying each other with military equipment left and right. Zelensky's presidential run was backed by a Ukrainian-Israeli billionaire, right? Kolomoisky. Yeah, U.S. NATO big Israel axis. Yes, this is true. Like, the camp is there. So when we hear these stories, it's made to make North Korea look insane and evil, and make Russia look insane and evil. They're putting things in quotes. Oh, the operation to liberate Russia's Kursk border from a Ukrainian incursion. Why is liberating quotes? They really did invade. They really did invade and penetrate the border. Why is Ukraine allowed to defend its borders, and even defend a border that the people within it said they shouldn't have, right? Ukraine's like, we defend this border against Russia. But the people living here are like, no, we're not you anymore. We're our own country. That's not your border. That's us. But Russia's not allowed to defend its border. And these are the contradictions, right, that come about with the Western capitalist understanding of the world. And it's hard. It's hard. When you talk to Ukrainians, they don't know how propagandized they are. Just like Americans don't know how propagandized they are. And they get mad. They get real mad. Again, I get death threats, rape threats, threats to kill my dog on Twitter from Ukrainian nationalists all day long, these fucking people. They're very, very, very vicious. And the thing that gets me is that Look, war bad. I think war is bad. That is why I think it is honorable and noble that Russia tried so hard to avoid going to war with Ukraine. If anything, the situation between Ukraine and Russia has made me like and appreciate Russia's role in the contemporary geopolitical arena far more, because they have acted with so many efforts to stave off war. They tried so many attempts at diplomacy to not have it reach this point. And Ukraine hasn't. Ukraine has frankly been what you would expect from a Nazi-run fascist country that doesn't give a fuck about the rest of the world, right? So it's 12 o'clock. I got to jump off now. We're going to end with any videos anybody wants to do as a palate cleanser, right? Anything else? Still not even a full-scale invasion. Yeah, that's true. It's true. So, this is just a brief recap. I could go to so many regions. I have 8 hours of podcast content about this situation for a reason, right? Pick me up. I'm scared if you guys want to listen. But do check out this document if you want to learn more on your own. You'll learn a lot just from here. Okay, website blog for International Ukraine Anti-Fascist Solidarity. And that's the other thing, too. Thank you, London's Best Guy. There are Ukrainian socialists and communists. Oh, that's the wrong link. Sorry, my bad. That are like, hey, our country was fucking taken over by fascists. This is Zelensky assassins threaten the world, right? Yeah. Important to remember. Yeah. And they want to claim it's Russian propaganda. It's not. And this is what I tell people. American news sources reported this. European news sources reported this. How is it Russian propaganda? If the United States hates Russia, how is it Russian propaganda? And at what point do you recognize that if the Russian narrative is the truth, maybe you've been propagandized? How crazy do you have to be to hear multiple people telling you the same thing Russia's telling you and say they're all propagandized by Russia? It just doesn't even make sense. People with conflicting interests, etc. Very, very, very wild. So, that said, it's not awesome for the people of Ukraine, that's for fucking sure. The United States put them in a position to have intense geopolitical conflict with their own government by uplifting Nazis there to take over the government, and with the government of their fucking next door neighbor, right? Which nobody wants that. Can you ask who is winning overall in the conflict, Russia or Ukraine? Russia. And the United States now, this is the final thing, the United States now doesn't really want to help defend Ukraine anymore. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I'm pretty sure just like Russia wanted to have friends in Ukraine who liked Russia, the United States wanted Ukraine to go to war so it would lose the sections of the country that were too favorable to Russia, because that was annoying for the United States. That's my guess. That's my analysis. My guess is that the United States was looking at Ukraine, was like, we got this much of them on our side, this much stubborn holdouts. They like Russia still too much. They're going to cause problems for us. We'll just spark a war and then let Russia take those parts. And then we're left with a Ukraine that loves us. We started out, we had a Russia that hates us and a Ukraine that half liked us, half hates us. Well, if that part is lost in the war and becomes territory of Russia, now we have a Russia who hates us, slightly bigger, who really cares, and a Ukraine that loves us. That's a win. That's a win for the United States, right? So, yeah, very, very wild. America, yeah, who is winning in the overall conflict, Russia or Ukraine? Lisa is actually correct. The United States is winning. The United States is winning. And in those peace negotiations, the United States said, we'll take 50% of the profits from reconstruction of Ukraine on top of it. Right? Okay, we got a palate cleanser from Kubashi. I can already tell the YouTube comments are going to be deranged. Honest. Okay, palate cleanser. We needed that. We all needed that. We needed that. Hell yeah, divas. Okay, all right. I'm going to send you all to Larry to carry on with your camp classes, camp session. just stay vigilant out there, folks. I know a lot of us already knew this whole story. I know a lot of us did. But some of us, maybe some new people, learned something about why those crazy leftists don't hate Russia as much as you think they should. Right? That's the reason. That's the reason. Where can you learn more about a company's socialist model? You can ask me, or I have my book. Actually, I have a fucking book. Jesus Christ, I forgot about that. This is the book. There's a paperback that has a different cover. So you might see it in pink. I Survived Capitalism and All I Got Was a Lousy T-shirt. It's available at your library. You can get it for free at your local library if you're in the United States. It's also been translated into Korean. So you don't have to pay for it. You can get it for free. All right? Yeah, I should have that on the Tunnel Vision website, honestly. These people are kookball. You can get it in the bookstore if you want. Yeah, you can buy it in the bookstore as well. It will make you cry. Yeah, London's best gay knows. My life's been weird and fucked up. A lot of bad stuff has happened. I think it might be. I don't know if it's in Canada, actually. I'm not sure. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it is worth clarifying. And it is worth looking into the context of how it's reported. It's just crazy how we report this shit, And it really makes you think how, if you've had access to Western media, think about what you think you know about the Korean War, the Vietnam War, any war, anywhere around the globe, right? Yeah, it was on Spotify as an audiobook. I think it still is, maybe. Okay. All right. I am sending you to Larry now. We are doing it. Is this it? Is this it? Did it work? No, hold on. Didn't work. Raid. Oh. My light ended. Perfect timing. Did it work? Yes, it worked. There's all this new stuff happening. Fresno fake. Yeah, right, Big Gotco. We're coming for you. Where do you live? Where do you live in the greater Fresno project, Big Gotco? I'm going to take that over first. I'm coming for that first. Okay, bye.